Chapter 701. The explosion quickly enveloped the rocks and absorbed the rock cliffs within a few dozen meters. Watching this scene, Obito stood on another cliff and frowned slightly. Why are you here? He followed Lord Orochimaru to this place for training. How could this guy appear in this place where no one lives? Something is wrong, something is very wrong. If you have the time to care about me, you might as well think about how to defeat this summoning beast. Hearing this, Obito looked at him deeply. His intuition told him that Shisui came here for a purpose. But as he said, it is better to think about how to defeat this man first. No, it is a monster now. Thinking of this, he narrowed his eyes slightly. The three megatama in his eyes quickly rotated. Then he started to talk. This behemoth was formed by the fusion of 3 people and 3 summoned beasts. I don't know what kind of technique it is, but this monster can release all the abilities of the fused people and beasts. Its wings can not only provide it with speed, but also allow it to fly at low altitude and release explosive feathers. The 2 spikes on its back can turn into steel snakes, like whips, to attack enemies at close range. It can also release scorching heat from its mouth. He quickly told the information he knew one by one. Shisui, who was standing by, heard this and suddenly realized that it was no wonder that his Sharingan saw that the chakra of this thing was very strange. It seemed to be fused, but it didn't seem to be fused. All kinds of chaos. He glanced at Obito again without leaving a trace, and a bold idea gradually flashed through his mind. What a lot of stuff. So many things, stuffed into one body. It seems that our Sharingan illusion has no effect on it. Obito nodded, that's right. After he finished speaking, 2 sharp steel spikes stabbed directly towards them. The speed was so fast that the air was blasted. But Obito and Shisui both had Sharingan, and they could easily detect the attack of the summoned beast. Without saying a word, the 2 dodged directly. They started to counterattack the beast one after another. When Shisui had time, he stuffed 2 leek boxes into his mouth. He hasn't eaten yet, and his stomach is a little hungry. On the top of the mountain, in the palace. After Orochimaru looked at the ball-shaped melted mass in front of him, there was no sign of disgust on his face. But he noticed that Beiruo actually excluded the 3 elders of Hyuga. This is interesting. Is it because of my arrival that he wants to better control his body to deal with me, or is it because he has no confidence in his ability to avoid the side effects of the blood limit of the Byakugan, so he gave up the Hyuga bloodline? But he didn't care much. Because at this moment, he was wearing his original body, which allowed him to exert 200% of his strength. So he was not afraid of anyone at all. Besides, if he couldn't beat him, he couldn't just leave. In terms of life-saving ability, he was the best, and no one dared to be second. At this moment, the fusion of Bailuo was completed. Just as in theory, he obtained 4 blood limit. As soon as Bailuo broke free from the fusion bubble, he couldn't wait to laugh. Ha 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 ha. I'm finally a ninja who can master the 4 blood limit. Ha ha ha, this world will eventually belong to Bailuo. As his laughter spread, a terrifying chakra aura burst out directly from his thin body, spreading to the entire Mount Sumeru in the world. Even the dark clouds in the sky were blown away by this aura and spread out in all directions. But soon, countless clouds gathered back. In the blink of an eye, the mountain was covered. It was even darker than before. At the foot of the mountain, Shisui and Obito, who had just avoided landing on the top of the mountain, looked up at the mountain, and their faces became quite exciting. Whose chakra is this? Why is it so terrifying? It is comparable to the furious big sister Kushina. But they don't have time to think about this, because the summoned beasts attacked again. On the top of the mountain, Orochimaru stood still in this aura, like a big pine tree that never bends. He didn't even blink, as if he didn't care about the aura shock wave at all. Not only that, the corners of his mouth also had the same smile as before. That was mockery and contempt. Seeing this, Bailuo's eyes changed. He put away his momentum. There was also a wild smile on his face, looking down at Orochimaru arrogantly. Pretentious. But Orochimaru, your scientific research ability is very strong, far beyond me. How about it, do you want to consider doing something for me? I can teach you the experience of Kime no Jutsu. Hearing this, the mockery in Orochimaru's eyes became even more intense. Just relying on you, you want to control me, Orochimaru, hey. He thought he was arrogant enough, but he didn't expect this person to be more arrogant than himself. What a shameless talk! Thinking of this, he slowly walked towards Bailahu. I have already got what I want, so please die. Hearing this, Bailahu sighed in disappointment. Alas! Orochimaru, I gave you a chance, but you are useless. In fact, even if Orochimaru agreed to his words and became his subordinate, he would find a way to kill him. Because he knows too much, understands too much, and his scientific research ability is even better than his own. Even half of the information of the Ghost Bud Ra technique he is using at this moment was stolen from Orochimaru's laboratory. After saying that, he immediately used Rain Cloud Cavity Wave to attack Orochimaru. In an instant, the entire palace was covered with pitch-black thunderclouds, and even countless lightning snakes were wandering around. For the attack of lightning, Orochimaru also responded with a lightning release thunder intercept technique. This move is also known as thunder accumulation. In the future, Minato and others all used the idea of returning the same thing as the others' way, which frightened the Rock Ninja and the Cloud Ninja. He also had a sudden idea and developed his own 5-element series of counterattack techniques. This move is to absorb lightning and then kill it back. This is the first time he has faced the world since he developed it. In an instant, this move gathered a colorful black lightning ball above his head. This ball also emitted a network of electric currents, wrapping him tightly in it to prevent him from being hurt by the power of lightning. At the same time, because the lightning network is relatively dense, it can also prevent sneak attacks from ninjas. It can be said that this is a move to protect oneself first and then counterattack. As the lightning ball gathered above his head, it was like a magnet, and began to absorb thunderclouds and lightning strikes from all directions. It made itself grow slowly. When Bailu saw this scene, his face became quite wonderful. How is this possible? His storm release not only failed to attack Orochimaru, but also turned into the nourishment of Orochimaru's ninjutsu. And his storm release is a combination of water and lightning. Through water, he can easily control the attack direction of lightning. It can also absorb lightning and make it follow his actions obediently. So logically speaking, his storm release should make Orochimaru's lightning ball become its own nourishment. How come it's the other way around here? This is unscientific. This is very scientific. Orochimaru said lightly, as if he could understand Hiriko's astonished thoughts. In the ninja world, many people release lightning release ninjutsu, most of which are electric current attacks with positrons. Although your storm release is a blood limit technique, it is still lightning, so you can't escape the swallowing of my thunder intercepting technique. Because his move is a negative electrode ninjutsu. After saying that, Orochimaru slightly changed his hand seal. The next moment, the pitch-black ball on his head that was getting bigger and bigger immediately had 3 sharp points sticking out, like arrows. Seeing this, Hiriko's face changed again and again. Lightning attribute form change. As we all know, lightning attribute is the most difficult to transform into form change, because it is too violent. But once someone masters the form change, his strength is absolutely terrifying. Chakra control strength is also extremely terrifying. But he has predicted Orochimaru's attack form. Immediately spread out his left hand. The bandage on his hand disintegrated instantly, revealing a pattern similar to 8. Thunder Intercept. Underworld Release Absorb Whole. Chapter 702. Soul Release is a special blood limit that absorbs the enemy's chakra and ninjutsu. At the same time, it can also restore the jutsu to chakra, and then transform it into flames, and return it to the opponent. Quite shameless. Of course, this blood limit has an upper limit, and it all depends on how much the practitioner develops it. As his absorbing hole lights up with a purple-red light, all the lightning arrows shot by Orochimaru were absorbed by it. Hirahu smiled, "You want to fight me, Orochimaru, you look down on me too much." Soul Release, Evil Self-Destruction Battle. Orochimaru's face sank slightly, and he immediately performed snake-shedding jutsu without saying a word. Hirahu's attack was very fast, and in just a blink of an eye, his attack hit Orochimaru. A blue flame directly burned the area where Orochimaru was. Even Orochimaru let out a shrill scream. Ah! Not only that, this chakra rebounded, like a jet of flame. After providing the ultimate burning, there is also an unparalleled impact force. From the perspective of Bailuhu, the person in the blue chakra flame was directly sprayed hundreds of meters away. It is equivalent to returning to where Orochimaru came from. Looking at this scene, Bailuhu did not feel overjoyed, but looked around with an extremely vigilant look. Orochimaru can't be hit and knocked out so easily by me. If Orochimaru was so easy to deal with, he would not become one of the 3 ninjas of Konoha. The 3 of them are outstanding in their respective fields. But he could not easily sense the breath of Orochimaru. This made him look at the only person who was still in the altar. The 3 elders of Hyuga. If I had mastered the Bun and had a strong insight, I wouldn't be so passive. Thinking about it, his ears suddenly moved. There seemed to be something rustling behind him, approaching him rapidly. He said nothing immediately. You want to sneak attack me who knows steel release, Orochimaru, you have made a wrong calculation. Steel release stealing technique. This is an application of the blood limit, which can turn the body of the practitioner into hard steel. Used to resist most of the damage caused by sharp weapons. When he launched this move, his whole body turned extremely black. It was several times darker than the skin color caused by hardening technique. Choke. Crack. The next second after his whole body turned black, several big snakes bit around his body. Their teeth were very sharp and they were very powerful. Beiliuhu, who was already on guard, let these giant snakes bite his limbs, and one of them was tightly wrapped around Beiliuhu's waist. But he was not panicked at all, and even turned his head 90 degrees and looked behind him with his peripheral vision. There stood a man with snow-white skin. At the same time, his right hand disappeared, and 5 large rat snakes sprang out from his sleeves. The snake heads were on Beiliuhu. Beiliuhu knew one thing, that is, his judgment was correct, and the attacks of these snakes were released by Orochimaru. Thinking of this, he smiled at Orochimaru. Orochimaru, it seems that you still don't understand the horror of nether release. Let me teach you well today. After saying that, he turned his wrist and pressed directly on the snake head that bit his wrist. Soul release, absorbing holes. As he finished speaking, the seal pattern on his hand emitted a purple-red glow again. A light blue chakra immediately emerged from the snake and quickly sank into the technique in his palm. No technique in this world works on me. Sure enough, after he absorbed all the chakra in the snake's body, the snake seemed to have fought for 3 days and 3 nights, 7 times a night. It instantly collapsed. Originally with a very strong bite force, at this moment, Beiliuhu just struggled slightly, and the snake head could no longer bite Beiliuhu's wrist. Before Orochimaru could react, he did the same thing again and absorbed all the chakra of these snakes. Then, with a slight force, he broke free from the snake's binding force. Orochimaru raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Beiliuhu with some surprise. This kid is not bad, he can actually master soul release. If he hadn't simulated it beforehand, or merged it beforehand, and had the experience, then his talent is really good. Of course, it is also possible that Gyuluo's technique is really amazing, and it can gather all the experience of the merged person into himself, so only then can he be so skilled. Looking at the soft snakes, Orochimaru directly collected them all. He looked at Beiliuhu without blinking. This is a good opportunity. I want to see how much strength he can exert as a bloody ninja. So, he can't be killed for the time being. Thinking of this, the 2 feet of his lower body immediately merged and finally turned into a snake tail. At the same time, he clenched his fists and rushed towards Beiliuhu. Looking at Orochimaru's actions, Beiliuhu thought he saw through Orochimaru's thoughts. After knowing that ninjutsu is ineffective against me, I immediately switched to using physical skills. It's a good way to deal with it. After saying that, he also threw a punch. His face became excited, and he shouted, "Don't you know, this was my weakness before, but not now." Steel release steel fist. The name of the move is simple and the move is also simple, which is to use steel blood limit to harden the fist and collide with the enemy. However, considering that Orochimaru is very strong, Oburu made his right half of his body steel. In this way, even if Orochimaru can hit his fist, his right half of his body will not be damaged by the backlash force due to the huge force. It happened so fast that in less than a second, the fists of the 2 people collided heavily. Oburu's expression moved slightly. The strength of Orochimaru's attack was far lower than he imagined. Originally, he thought that Orochimaru would at least attack the enemy 70% and keep 30% for himself. But he didn't expect that his strength was only 30%. Attack the enemy 30% and keep 70% for himself. No, that's not right. Orochimaru must have restrained his strength in the middle. His mouth corners slightly raised. Why did Orochimaru restrain his strength? Because he was afraid of getting hurt. With flesh and blood, he would not fight against steel, even if he had a brain. Orochimaru would not do that. So he restrained his strength. He just barely reached the strength to resist his fist. Thinking of this, the corners of Bailuo's mouth twisted even more. Orochimaru, you are timid, but you can't beat me. Bailuo laughed. He blasted Orochimaru back with a force, and then quickly formed seals with both hands in front of him. The third power, swift escape. As he finished speaking, he disappeared in front of Orochimaru. Orochimaru naturally noticed Bailuo's actions, and he just witnessed the four people being taken in by Bailuo's breath. He knew the approximate capabilities of those blood limits. So when he heard the word swift, Orochimaru was already prepared. At this moment, behind him came the somewhat crazy laughter of Okuro. Ha 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 ha. Orochimaru, have you ever been kicked by light? He said, without waiting for Orochimaru to be stunned, and kicked Orochimaru's waist heavily. The next moment, Orochimaru felt that his waist was kicked hard. He couldn't help but fly to the side. Okuro made several seals with his hands, increasing his speed again. Then he rushed after Orochimaru. Speed is power. After saying that, he punched Orochimaru's cheek heavily. Then he opened swift escape and launched a violent attack around Orochimaru. Orochimaru had no countermeasures. But the more Hirako fights, the more excited he becomes. As expected of the catchphrase of the fastest man in the ninja world, it turns out that it is so exciting to say it. Nowadays, the title of the fastest man in the ninja world has been inherited by Minato Namikaze. During the Chunin exam, Minato Namikaze of Konoha and AI of the Hidden Cloud Village had a contest of speed. Minato Namikaze was suppressing AI throughout the whole process. Since then, people know who is the fastest man in the ninja world. So many speed-type ninjas will take what Minato Namikaze said during the battle as their own words. It seems that after saying it, it will increase their speed by a few points. Orochimaru was speechless. He looked at Hirako's fist and complained in his heart. Plagiarism. Serious plagiarism. Future, although you are not in the ninja world, your words are still circulating in the ninja world. As Minato and his teacher, he naturally knew the source of this sentence. These were the words that Mirai came up with for Minato, and the purpose was very simple, to improve Minato's status. Chapter 703. At the foot of the mountain. 10 minutes ago. The two little ones were still attacking the huge summoned beast. However, the opponent's skin and flesh were too thick, and Obito could not cause effective damage to it, and the same was true for Shisui. He landed on a cliff not far away and looked at the summoned beast with a serious face. He tightened the knife in his hand, his face was unusually serious. If I had the master's knife, I could kill a few of these monsters by myself. Because he looked at the knife in his hand, it had deformed, and the edge of the blade began to curl. He felt that he had a strong swordsmanship, but suffered from the lack of a good weapon. If he had Tessaigan in his hand, how could he have fought for so long? Thinking of this, he turned his head and looked at Obito. This guy was still using the fire escape technique to attack the summoned beast. No, the ninja world will become more and more chaotic in the future. I must let Obito open the Mangeki to enter the different space and get the Tessaigan. Then hand over Tessaigan to the village, so that the Konoha high-level officials who hold the artifact and have absolute power will not be afraid of Uchiha. And the Uchiha who lost Tessaigan will be much more honest. In this way, the battle between the two sides can be avoided, and Konoha will develop better. This is the condition that Elder Danzo agreed to him. Besides, throughout history, which powerful organization was not disintegrated from the inside? Once the Uchiha and Konoha high-level officials fight, Konoha will only suffer. And other countries will take the opportunity to attack Konoha. Even if Konoha now has the 3 ninjas, Lord White Fang, and the 6 monsters of Konoha. But as long as you are a human, you will be calculated. You will die. Just like the master. He is so strong, but didn't he die in an unknown sea? So in this world, no one dares to call himself invincible. They will die too. Only interests are permanent. Thinking of this, he immediately planned a package of plans in his mind. And he was very experienced in his transformation technique. Thinking of this, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Just at this moment, he heard the sound of Orochimaru's painful wail from the top of the mountain. Then he saw the flames rushing out of the door of the hall. The expression on his face became anxious. He jumped up and rushed to the top of the mountain, shouting at the same time, "Obito, hold it, I'll go to help Lord Orochimaru." "Obito. No, Don't go, Lord Orochimaru won't. But before he finished speaking, the figure of Shisui had disappeared from his sight, which made his face darker and darker. Damn! This unlucky kid! Can't they first deal with this summoning beast, and then go to help Orochimaru? Besides, Orochimaru is the master's teacher. The future master once told them that no one in this world can kill Orochimaru. Because he is so good at saving his life. Let them all learn from Orochimaru. Can't die, find ways to live. So when he heard Orochimaru's wailing just now, his not-so-smart brain moved slightly, and he knew what Orochimaru was thinking. Show weakness to the enemy. The problem is that Shisui couldn't think of something that he had figured out. Instead, he rushed up in a hurry. It seems that his IQ is higher than Shisui's. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. Kakashi, that bastard, always says that his IQ is low. Look, he actually has some IQ. But soon he couldn't laugh anymore. A ball of burning flame shot down from the dark clouds in the sky. Before the flame arrived, the intense heat made Obito's scalp numb. He immediately dodged and jumped away, and the smile on his face instantly turned into a bitter look. Shisui, you bastard! The old Shisui was better, following behind him every day, calling him brother and brother all day long. How cute Shisui was at that time. Now look at Shisui, not only has he become a licker of the high level, but he is also determined to weaken the strength of Uchiha and strengthen the power of Konoha's high level. No, I must keep Itaki away from that dog coin, and I must not let him lead Itaki astray. Now Uchiha is already in a difficult enough situation, with two factions in the clan quarreling every day. One said that Konoha should be the main focus, and the other said that he should be responsible for Uchiha. Damn! Shisui naturally heard Obito's shouting and cursing. He just took a look and rushed forward without looking back. If Obito could activate the power of this summoned beast under its pressure Manjiki, then he could really relax a little, and he wouldn't have to perform that technique. Soon, he rushed into the hall. He found that Orochimaru was fighting with Hirako. In the center of the hall, there was another person he was familiar with. He was slightly surprised, the third elder of the Hyuga clan, how could he be caught here? After thinking about it, he didn't think he could intervene in the battle between Orochimaru and the others, so he went to rescue the third elder. Hirako naturally noticed the actions of the little mouse. But he didn't care at all. There was even ecstasy in his eyes. Uchiha. He knew the three Megatama Sharingan in the child's eyes very well. It was the fifth power he had always dreamed of. You know, he had been staring at Uchiha for more than a year, but he didn't find a chance to start. So he had no choice but to choose the Hyuga clan to become his fifth power. But he never expected that an Uchiha would come to his door. Ha 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 ha. What day is today? Why do all the good things come to me? Oh my god, I love you so much. He wanted to exert his strength to temporarily repel Orochimaru, so as to hold the Uchiha kid hostage. As long as he waits for the next golden ring eclipse to appear, he can absorb and fuse the Uchiha's blood limit. By then, he will be the most perfect ninja. Ha 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 ha. Orochimaru frowned slightly. Uchiha Shisui. How did he appear here? But now is not the time to talk about this, and he can't let the experimental subject run away. He hasn't seen enough. Come back to me. As he said, he threw out a large-scaled snake. It trapped Beiraho in an instant. The latter looked at the snake on his body, and the mockery in his eyes became stronger. Didn't I say that your technique, Hiroyuki's face changed drastically. Because he found that his body could not move. Not only his body, but even his chakra became abnormally slow. It was as if every strand of chakra was carrying 1,000 pounds of weight and moving slowly forward. If you can't mobilize chakra effectively, you naturally can't use blood limit. After all, chakra is the source of all techniques. He said in horror, what is this? But soon he found that Orochimaru's face became paler than before. Especially on his forehead, it was full of fine beads of sweat. There was a rare solemnity in his eyes. Yes, this technique should consume a lot of Orochimaru's energy and chakra, otherwise it won't work on me. When Hiroyuki thought of this, his panicked heart fell steadily into his stomach. Orochimaru, I still say what I said before, become my subordinate, I will guide you with all my heart and soul to become a perfect ninja like me. Since he knew that Orochimaru could not last long, Hirohu planned to delay time and consume a large amount of his chakra, so that he could easily devour his vast amount of chakra. Hee hee. All the advantages today are on him. However, in order to let Orochimaru continue to perform this special binding ninjutsu, he still moved hard towards Uchiha Shisui. This move made Orochimaru's eyes tremble, and a stronger binding force appeared again, causing Hiroho's mouth to slightly rise. Very good, that's it. Orochimaru, use your strength, vent all your energy on me. Soon everything you have will be mine. He he he. At this moment, he no longer laughed ha ha ha, but a standard word laugh. Of course, he was laughing in his heart. After all, he still had to act on the surface. At this time, Shisui had already hugged the third elder and quickly left. This made a gleam of light flash in Beiruo's eyes. Want to leave? No way. This is his base camp, Mount Sumi. Not only is it his place of sanctification, but it is also his home full of traps. So under the restraint of Orochimaru, he finally moved to the bottom of an inconspicuous stone step, and then kicked it hard. The stone brick immediately sank in. The next second, the whole Mount Sumi gradually shook. The most conspicuous thing is that the cliffs with strange rocks all seemed to be alive. They began to move irregularly and rubbed. 3 kilometers away, a light blue light shield emerged from the ground. It soon wrapped Mount Sumi. In the blink of an eye this place has become a cage. Chapter 704. After Shisui arranged the 3 elders to a safe place, he performed the transformation technique on the spot. Then he sneaked towards Konoha. He planned to appear from there. After all, he had to do the whole show. Although he felt that with Obito's intelligence, he could not see the shortcomings at all, but just in case. Obito could have the upper hand against the 3 people and 3 beasts, and even solved them one by one with difficulty. But who would have thought that they would cheat? It's so annoying. I really want to find someone to block their account. Damn it. While thinking about this, the attack of the summoned beast came again. This time it was not fire, but the spikes on its back. Seeing this scene, Obito flew away from the spot without saying a word. On the top of the mountain, the battle between Orochimaru and Hiriko was still going on. With his excellent snakeskin movement, Orochimaru frequently dodged the attacks of Hiriko. At this time, Hiriko finally understood why Orochimaru turned the human feet into the tail of a snake. Because it was so damn smooth. It could move quickly and even move sideways. This is not scientific at all. No. But Orochimaru seemed to see his thoughts and directly pointed out, we humans can't swim as well as fish. We can't long jump as well as frogs, and we can't run as well as jackals, tigers, and leopards. But we have an advantage that they can't match, that is, we have a smart brain we can learn from their advantages and transform them into our own abilities. You think snakes can only move forward, or left front, right front, and at most backward, but you are wrong. As he said that, he released it on the spot. His lower body was in an S shape, floating on one side and landing on the other. It looked like a 90-degree angle between the cockpit and the track of an excavator. Like me, I can move sideways. And because the ground contact area is large enough, I'm not afraid of slipping at all, and I also have a grip that human feet can't match. Her face turned black. Who asked you this? You say that, you look so stupid. Without saying anything, he immediately used the bombardment technique on Orochimaru again. Storm release was his main force. As for swift release, it didn't have much effect on Orochimaru. His soft body was like a swamp, which could absorb and dissolve all his punches. Even sharp weapons couldn't easily scratch him. So he could only attack with ninjutsu. And after the previous absorbing whole counterattack, Orochimaru no longer dared to use thunder intercept on him. In fact, if he looked more carefully, he could see that there was no panic in Orochimaru's eyes, and even bursts of light flashed in his eyes. Very good, that's it, use everything you have. My dear friend. At the foot of the mountain, Obito's right arm had been scratched. He just didn't dodge the sharp spikes. He was covering his arm with one hand, while trying his best to jump back and forth in the barrier cover. At this moment, suddenly from the shadows not far away, there was a whistling sound of breaking through the air. In an instant, more than 10 blasting kunai passed over Obito's head and shot at the defenseless summoned beast. This change startled Obito. Someone? Besides them, there are actually other people here on Mount Sumi. Before he could take a closer look, he found that the huge summoned beast flying in the sky had been pierced with blasting kunai. It didn't seem to react that there was someone here. Boom! It only took a second for the kunai detonation tags to explode immediately. In an instant, a huge fireball appeared in the sky. And in the fireball, the painful wail of the summoned beast was heard. The scorching flames illuminated the gloomy sky, making Obito feel a little warm. At this time, Obito also saw who that person was. Oh my god! Degree! Just because he saw who that person was, his face suddenly became very exciting. Even the 3 megatama in his eyes were spinning rapidly. Rin, why are you here? There was a little girl in black standing there, with short hair that reached her shoulders, which made her look particularly beautiful. Especially the lavender oil on her face, which added a bit of personality to her. What happened today? This is obviously a deserted place. It's okay for him and teacher Orochimaru to come, but why are Shisui and Lin here too? Nohara Lin's face looked unhappy and a bit panicked. This immediately caused he jumped to the side of Nohara Rin in a hurry. When the latter saw the scarlet blood oozing out of his arm, she immediately showed an expression of great distress. How did you get hurt? She said, looking at the gradually extinguishing flames in the sky. After thinking about it, she immediately pulled Obito to hide in a cave. Although this strange rock mountain can move, the cave inside cannot. After hiding in the cave, Nohara Rin immediately performed medical ninjutsu to treat Obito. Obito was very curious at this moment. He suppressed the throbbing in his heart and asked, Lin, why did you come to such a dangerous place? The latter seemed to have expected it, and immediately said, Lord Orochimaru brought you out, I was worried, so I followed quietly. Obito understood, and he immediately said with a smile, Hehe, look at you, what's there to worry about, I didn't solve the 3 people and 3 beasts. As he said, he looked outside the cave indignantly. Who knew that these little trash couldn't afford to play, and directly combined to cheat? But don't worry, with me here, and your medical ninjutsu support, they will definitely lose. When he talked about medical ninjutsu, he noticed something strange. The healing light in Lin's hand was not as green as before, and the amount was small, and the light was not obvious. Lin, why are you using the most basic healing technique? Doesn't Lin know healing techniques? And why does this method feel a bit out of touch? You know, even Ling Hua's master wife was amazed at Lin's medical ninjutsu. Nohara Lin's face froze, but she recovered quickly. She explained, it's mainly because I consumed a lot of chakra when I came here. As she said this, Nohara Lin lowered her head with a guilty conscience. She was betting that Obito would not rashly use the Sharingan to observe her physical condition. Sure enough, after Obito was just confused for a moment, he immediately believed her explanation. He said with a touching face, Lin, it's my blessing to have you. As he said this, he couldn't help scratching the back of his head, looking silly. Nohara Lin felt sick in her heart. She didn't expect that Obito, not only had a bad brain, but also was so greasy and disgusting. At this moment, the huge summoned beast that couldn't find anyone in the sky began to attack the surrounding mountains indiscriminately. For a moment, the 2 people hiding in the cave were a little unsteady. Lin quickly dispersed the chakra in her hand and helped Obito up. They looked out of the cave together. They found the huge summoning beast, with its wings spread high. The beast's instinct told it that the annoying bug just now, and the girl who made it explode with pain, were hiding in the lower mountain. So, it attacked the mountain below, trying to force them out. However, due to its low IQ, it could only act on instinct. So, as long as any mountain moved, it would launch a crazy attack on that mountain. For a moment, it seemed a little busy. Coincidentally, the cave where Obito and the others were was a moving mountain. Before Obito and the others could stabilize their bodies from the previous collision, a more violent collision came again. The 2 people who had not stood firmly were affected by this collision and fell directly to the ground. Obito saw that he was about to overwhelm Lin and hurt her. His eyes suddenly condensed, he didn't want Lin to be hurt. He immediately exerted force on his waist and moved under Lin, using his body as a meat cushion. And he used both hands tightly to protect the girl in his arms. Bang! This Mount Sumeru is a group of rocks, with almost no soil. The same is true in the cave. Obito was almost knocked out of his strength by the weight of a person. However, he still looked at the girl in his arms at the first time and asked anxiously, Lin, are you okay? Lin's cheeks flushed, and she was a little afraid to look at Obito's eyes. Damn it! How did she knock Obito down? Disgusting! Omega, blush JPG. At this moment, she felt extremely disgusted and wanted to vomit. But thinking of Tessaigan, she gritted her teeth and resisted the nausea in her heart. She forced out a smile with difficulty. I'm fine, I'm fine. As she said that, she supported herself on both sides of Obito, rode on Obito, and was about to stand up quickly. She, a young Uchiha genius, actually fell into the arms of another man. Damn! I'm so embarrassed. Her behavior, in Obito's eyes, turned into coyness. For a moment, his heart was thumping. It jumped up and down like a little deer. But the mountain was still moving, and the summoned beast hit it again. This time the vibration was even greater than the previous 2 times. Just as she was about to get up and leave quickly, Nohara Rin hit Obito again. And something that everyone loves to see happened. She kissed. Oh no! It was her mouth that touched Obito's lips. She didn't kiss him. For a moment, the two of them opened their eyes wide. Their breathing froze. Especially their bodies, which were straighter and harder than steel plates. Obito stared at the goddess in front of him with his big blood-red eyes. Feeling the softness of her lips, he couldn't help but stick out his tongue and lick it. Leek flavor. Chapter 705. Shisui, no. She is still Nohara Rin now. She stared blankly at the person in front of her. That big face was actually quite cute if you looked closely. You know what, Master is right. There are no ugly men in our Uchiha. But he was soon shocked by his own thoughts. His face changed from extremely rosy to extremely dark, and then from extremely dark to extremely white. Red, black, white, white, red, black. Obito had never discovered that a person's face could change so many colors. No wonder Jiraiya-sama often says that a woman's face is like the weather in June, it changes at any time. But, he asked in a daze, Rin, don't you not eat leek dumplings? Although the two were still talking mouth to mouth, it did not affect Obito's speech at all. As soon as these words came out, Nohara Rin's face froze in red, and she looked at Obito with shame and anger. She quickly turned over and rolled to the other side. She didn't dare to ride on Obito to get up like before. If it happened again, she would definitely die. Obito realized something belatedly at this moment. His face began to heat up rapidly with a temperature visible to the naked eye. But his breathing froze in an instant. Nohara Rin saw very clearly that Obito's forehead was emitting steam. Like a steamer. Obito sat up quickly and was about to explain. Say that he didn't mean it. But at this moment, the summoned beast rushed over again. Crashed into the mountain. After 3 consecutive collisions, this hard rock wall began to show signs of collapse. Nohara Rin narrowed her eyes and activated the explosives hidden in advance without saying a word. She didn't dare to stay any longer. God knows what terrible things will happen next. Don't make your chastity, innocence. Not right. Anyway, don't give up your virginity. You know, the transformation technique he performed was passed down from his master, and the feeling after the transformation is quite real. It can change the body structure of the caster. It makes him completely become another person. At the beginning, Lord Rope Tree was made to cry for his parents by this trick, and his master used this incident to ridicule him many times. So she can naturally feel what Nohara Rin can feel. For example, now, she feels that something is wrong with her, and her mind is full of bitterness. Obito noticed that the cave was about to collapse, and he didn't care about his excited heart. He immediately stood up and pulled Nohara Rin to run out of the cave. The latter didn't struggle because this was not the best place. When they were about to rush out of the cave, Obito suddenly felt someone pushing him from behind. The force was strong but gentle and he was not injured, but he was ejected uncontrollably. But behind him, wasn't there only Rin? He turned his head and saw that it was indeed only Rin. Seeing Obito's astonished expression, Nohara Rin began her most attentive acting ever. She stood in the cave, with 3 parts of shyness, 3 parts of loss, and 4 parts of relief in her eyes, looking at Obito. At the same time, she said in an unprecedented gentle tone, Omido. You have to live with my share. As soon as the words fell, the entire mountain collapsed. Countless rubble and boulders all rolled down, and soon blocked the cave tightly. It also covered Nohara Rin's last expression, leaving Obito with only Nohara Rin's last complex expression. No. Lin. Instantly, the whole Mount Sumi was filled with Obito's heart-wrenching roar. They had kissed before, but how come Lin was buried by the mountain the next second? A moment later, the entire mountain collapsed completely and turned into a gravel plain. If Obito still had some brains, he should have noticed that the mountain collapsed a little too fast and was a little broken. Normally, it takes time for a mountain to collapse naturally. There are many rocks in the mountain, which can provide good support. It won't collapse as completely as this mountain. But he watched his beloved woman being buried by the mountain. Obito's few IQs were all washed away by the extreme pain. With red eyes, he rushed towards the collapsed mountain as soon as he landed on the ground. When he rushed to the place where Nohara-Lin disappeared last, he began to dig vigorously. He threw stones the size of a human head one after another, and the rocks were pushed away by his hands and feet. Some of the rocks were so sharp that they scratched Obito's arms and palms. But the latter didn't notice it at all and continued to move the rocks. "Rin! Don't be afraid, I'll get you out right away!" he shouted madly while digging. At this time, not only his hands, but also his eyes, were filled with blood and tears. Tick tick. Soon his clothes were soaked. On the top of the mountain, Orochimaru glanced down and twitched his mouth. Young people nowadays are really good at playing. That's right, he could see Obito's battle from beginning to end, and naturally he also saw Shisui. And the acting skills that were full of flaws in his eyes. And Nohara-Rin was obviously fine, but she deliberately pushed Obito. Let Obito mistakenly think that a rock fell and he couldn't get out even if he pulled her. Combined with Shisui's disappearing figure, he immediately guessed that this Nohara-Rin was Shisui's disguise. Through the curse seal placed on Obito's shoulder, he could clearly see everything, as well as everything that happened to Obito and the others in the cave. He couldn't help but look expectantly. "Obito, can you open your eyes?" Orochimaru. Just as Orochimaru looked down at the foot of the mountain, Obito's somewhat angry voice suddenly sounded from behind him. "You dare to look around when fighting with me? You don't take me seriously." Orochimaru's eyes condensed slightly. "You used swift release, so you quickly rushed behind me." But although he was surprised, he was not panicked at all. Anyway, it's difficult to kill him. Storm Release Light Fang. This is a laser attack formed by rapidly compressing the power of lightning. Its power even exceeds the damage that all ninja tools can inflict. Moreover, it is a collection of high-quality lightning power, plus high-speed water shaping. So it also has superb cutting power. The most important thing is that the launch speed of this move is quite fast. Almost as soon as Baileita finished speaking, a laser appeared in his mouth. Then it swept towards Orochimaru's waist. This sneak attack can be said to have a very good grasp of the timing and angle. Orochimaru's body was cut into two pieces in an instant. Baileita dispersed the laser on his mouth, and the corners of his mouth and eyes rose wildly. "Ha ha ha! Orochimaru, you arrogant guy, finally died in my hands. Ha ha ha! Ninja world, welcome your new king." But he laughed, and his laughter stopped abruptly. He looked at the cut on Orochimaru's body in astonishment. Instead of blood, there were countless snake heads. The upper and lower parts were the same. The snake heads grew rapidly and soon merged with the snake heads on the other half of the body. A magical scene happened. These snake heads were like liquids, and soon they entangled with each other and then merged. In the end, the snake heads disappeared, and there was only the body of the snake. Then, as the snake body squirmed and contracted, the body that was broken into two sections quickly merged together. When Birahu saw this scene, he was dumbfounded. This is also possible. This is cheating. This is definitely cheating. Because this is not scientific at all. Orochimaru. This is very scientific. He wanted to explain, but found that the huge summoning beast had circled and found Obito on the ruins, and swooped down towards him. At this moment, Obito no longer dug stones. He stared blankly at the bloody man below. At this moment, her eyes narrowed slightly, and in addition to the blood on her face, there was a smile without regret. From a distance, Orochimaru felt Obito's chakra through the curse seal, which was rapidly becoming dark. He had experienced the eye-opening, so he naturally knew what was happening. It seems that Shisui's plan is going to succeed. Obito stared blankly at the bottom, his eyes were bloody and empty. In his perspective, the world not only became dark, but also red. Is this hell? Master is dead, and Rin is dead too. They all died alive in front of me. But I can't do anything. If I can have a space to protect them, will they not die? If I can escape from this world, can I also take them with me? In an instant, his mind was filled with this. These thoughts occupied him. These thoughts appeared after he saw his master carrying the blue giant and crashing into the alien space. In the past year or so, this thought would emerge every time he rested. He didn't realize that as he thought about it, the 3 megatama in his eyes turned 6 times. Soon, a special pattern appeared in his eyes. It was like a pattern of 3 sickles of the god of death, converging together. Lin. Wait for me. I want to create a world with you. Chapter 706. In the sky. The giant beast had already pounced on Obito. The latter turned his head and stared at it fiercely. The hatred in his eyes was like a surging river, endless, and like the yellow river flooding, out of control. It's all you. Obito's hoarse voice suddenly sounded. If it weren't for it, Lin wouldn't have died. Then he glared at the beast flying in the sky fiercely. Kai. This move is his pupil technique, a technique that suddenly appeared in his mind. He didn't know how it appeared, but he knew one thing, this pupil technique could fulfill his wish. As he glared, the giant beast flying rapidly in the sky began to twist within a 10-meter range. It happened to be within the neck of the giant beast. It was just the first time Obito used the pupil technique, so his eyes were overloaded more than he imagined. So much so that both of his eyes oozed out more blood and tears. But Obito seemed to feel no pain, still using all his strength, staring at the sky. It was as if he wanted to vent all the hatred and anger in his heart. On the top of the mountain, Orochimaru looked at Obito's eyes. Although he could not see clearly because of the distance, he could clearly sense through the perception technique that Obito's eyes had evolved into a manjiki. For a moment, his breathing became rapid. His eyes and expression were full of ecstasy. He opened his eyes. Obito finally opened his eyes. There is hope for the future corpse. Gee, can't laugh like that. Ha 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 ha. Oh, asterisk. On the other side, Hiriko's expression also became extremely wonderful. He naturally noticed the huge fluctuation of Kamyu. What puzzled him was that the little brat was only a few years old. How could he awaken the manjiki? This is not scientific at all. Without even turning his head, Orochimaru retorted, No, this is very scientific. Because of the existence of chakra, this energy can make human beings turn their inner wishes and desires into reality. Uchiha's Sharingan is called the Eye of Soul Reflection, which means that the bigger their heart is, the stronger their power will be. It was the first time that Biru heard such words, and his expression changed from astonishment to surprise. As expected of a fighting nation. Sharingan is really powerful, and I must master it. So he looked at Orochimaru with full murderous intent. Now as long as he killed him, he would have time to slowly cripple the 2 Uchiha children. Storm Release Storm Ghost Dragon. He used all his chakra and used the largest storm release ever, ready to kill with one blow. His chakra was so huge that a violent tornado storm was passively formed around Mount Sumeru, rolling up dust all over the sky. Not only that, the sky also quickly gathered a thunderstorm cloud layer of more than 10 kilometers. Countless lightning gathered in the sky, like a snake nest, rolling and wandering wantonly. Orochimaru directly made seals with both hands and sneered, Hirako, thank you for your efforts, goodbye. After that, his clothes began to move automatically without wind. A series of violent breaths gradually appeared and grew larger. Rolled up countless sand and dust on the ground. Made Orochimaru's figure seem a little looming. Yakata no Jutsu. This is the strongest move of his body, which can turn himself into the legendary Yamata no Orokai. Immortal and indestructible, superspeed regeneration. And after years of research and transformation, he has developed the Yakata no Jutsu quite well. In addition to the huge body, which provides super strong attack power, each of its heads has its own ability. Corresponding to the 7 chakra attributes of the ninja world, wind, water, earth, thunder, fire, yin, yang, and poison, which is Orochimaru's favorite, there are 8 means of attack. And because of its huge body, it provides it with terrifying combat power. For example, it can create earthquakes through the earth attribute, typhoons through wind, and floods through water. It can be said that Orochimaru in this form is a natural disaster maker. Bailuo was stunned. He looked at the monster with 8 heads and 8 tails in front of him in horror, and for a moment he forgot what to do. Orochimaru still has such a terrifying technique? However, Orochimaru did not give him a moment of time. The 8 heads moved together and released their respective attacks on Bailuo. In an instant, the 7 attacks rushed towards Bailuo like a raging flood. There is no need to say much about the 6 types of wind, earth, water, fire, thunder, and poison. The main thing is that the 2 chakra attributes of yin and yang are directly gathered together, formed a pitch-black ball. This is his ability through Linghua, imitating the use of yin-yang escape developed by the research and development. It is just not as awesome as Linghua's. It cannot turn the people it touches into ashes, nor will it explode, but it has no distance limit and can make the ninjutsu ineffective. So in this wave of attacks, it is the first attack. When Bai Luo wanted to use nether escape to defend, he was shocked to find that his technique did not work on the ball. How is this possible? There should be no such technique in the world. Orochimaru smiled slightly, and his compassionate voice came from the head of the Yamata no Orokai, your Kiyomaru is not perfect at all. You can only use one technique at the same time. Maybe you are too eager for blood limit, I found that you use nether escape the most. You should have forgotten that talent is the most fundamental. Bai Luo, you have put the cart before the horse. Facing his own attack, he really used nether escape as Orochimaru thought. Of course, even if he didn't use spirit release but speed release, he still had a way to attack him. Without giving him time to talk, Orochimaru's Yaki move had already hit Hokuroku. With a flash of purple light, the entire Mount Sumura disappeared. The next moment, a deafening roar came from heaven and earth. The sound was very harsh, as if the world was mourning the departure of a mountain. Similarly, Obito at the foot of the mountain was also awakened. He subconsciously looked at Mount Sumuru. There was all white light there, even though his Mangekyo was overloaded and could not be opened, he could still see the 8-headed and 8-tailed behemoth in the white light at a glance. At this moment, a sound of a heavy object falling to the ground came, causing Obito to look back. There was a headless behemoth there, crushing the rock cliff, and was twitching all over. At this moment, his expression suddenly became dull. Because there was a pupil power that pulled him in. At the same time, Lin, who was smashed beyond recognition, suddenly turned into smoke. When the smoke dissipated, Lin turned into the body of a male ninja. The body was still for a moment, then trembled slightly, and was soon lifted up by the people below. The boy hiding in the gap below was revealed. He was staring at Obito with a pair of Sharingan and panting. It's really too difficult to use illusions to confuse Obito and not be discovered by him. He almost couldn't bear it. But the corners of his mouth rose wildly. Because the plan went smoothly, Obito successfully opened his eyes. He couldn't help but stare at Obito's eyes. The master's relics, are they in there? But soon, his eyes became dull. This is a strange world, full of birdsong and flowers, and countless colorful butterflies flying in it. There was a tree on the top of the mountain, and there was a cliff in front of it. A man was sitting there, looking at him with a distressed face. The afterglow of the setting sun, dotted behind the man, made him look more artistic and more vicissitudes. Obito, you have opened your eyes. Seeing familiar people, hearing familiar words, and the care in the words. Obito's tears flowed out in an instant. Master. He stared blankly at the person on the top of the mountain, and his throat was blocked for a while. Is it you, Master? Obito, it hurts. Mirai looked at him, and the pain in his eyes became stronger. If it hurts, just cry. Master is here. Obito couldn't hold it back for a moment, and he immediately rushed to the top of the mountain. Master. All the way, tears flowed, and behind him, there were tears. Master, linear. Woo. At this moment, he finally understood what cursed eyes meant. If every time he opened his eyes, it would be so painful, and the people he cared about would die. Then he would rather not have these eyes. But it was also through these eyes that he understood one thing. This world is wrong, it should not exist. How can a ninja live in this world full of hatred and be happy? Chapter 707. After crying for a while. After Obito's emotions stabilized, Mirai sat down and listened to Obito's chattering quietly. Many of them were his hard training over the past year. There was also Rin's progress and Kakashi's hatefulness. The attitude of the village towards Uchiha. Finally, there was Minato's longing for Mirai. Mirai waited quietly for him to finish speaking, then she put her arm around his shoulders and said apologetically, I'm sorry for worrying you. Obito shook his head, he looked at the person who was hugging him, and a hint of loss appeared between his eyebrows. Master, is this one of your chakras? He opened the Mangeki at this moment, so he could naturally see some clues. The person in front of him was just one of the master's chakras, not the master himself. Well, this is me using the transfer seal to seal my chakra in your eyes. It will only be activated when the conditions for opening are met. As he said this, Mirai smiled bitterly. To be honest, master, I really don't want you to open your eyes. As he said this, he looked at the setting sun, with more bitterness in his eyes. Every time we Uchiha open our eyes, it's like walking through hell. Although we can gain tremendous power, this power is too heavy. As he said this, he was silent for a while. Obito also fell silent, and at this time he could still feel the warmth at the corner of his mouth. That was the taste of Lin eating leeks. But now, they are forever separated by the yin and yang. But do you know why master still has to set it up so that you can open the Mangekyo before you can open this seal? Hearing this, Obito was stunned. To be honest, he really hadn't thought about this. He blinked, his eyes mixed with tears and blood, and asked in confusion, why? Mirai restrained the emotions on his face and looked at him solemnly. Because of Uchiha Madara. Obito remembered the scary old man. Is it the old Uchiha grandfather who fought with you last time? He looked like he was 100 years old, but he had such a huge chakra and a giant like a demon god. Even the master tried his best, but couldn't kill him. It was terrible. Yes, he is making a terrible plan. He wants to use infinite moon reading to drag everyone in the world into the illusion, so as to achieve the peace he expects. Hearing this, Obito's eyes lit up slightly. Peace. This is what he wants to do most at the moment. Because this world is imperfect, after he opened his eyes, he wondered if he could create a complete world with Lin. In this way, even if Lin is resurrected, she can live in a perfect world. She will no longer be manipulated by the current world full of hatred. But soon, he noticed the words from the future, illusion. Does it mean an illusory world? Mirai began to tell Obito all about Black Zetsu, Kagaya, and the sacred tree. In the different space. With Mirai's unremitting efforts, he finally reached 100% of his progress. When he looked at the golden sword in his mind, his eyes were full of strangeness. Shining. Tessaigan. According to the information fed back by the sword, Tessaigan in this state can exert 200% of the power of the sword holder and Tessaigan to the maximum extent. I should still be in the world of Naruto. Why does he feel like he has come to the Ultra World? Could it be that he has traveled through time again? In order to deal with the Ultra World, Tessaigan has an additional skill. No, when he died, Tessaigan's unlocking was more than 90%. In other words, this shining form already existed in the Naruto world. Or did this sword absorb the light of the Ultra World when it crossed over, so it has this form? For a moment, he was confused. At this moment, he suddenly noticed something unusual. He couldn't help but look in a direction, where he heard the summoning power that he couldn't resist. Is this, the breath of the psychic technique? As someone who often uses this trick to summon Zyobai, Future clearly identified this call. So he followed the call and left here quickly. In Nanga Shrine, Orochimaru began to explain to the three people behind him, as long as I dig open the belly of the god of death, I can get my hands back and release the 4 Hokage sealed in the belly of the god of death. With these hands, I can perform reincarnation. Sasuke, your doubts can be solved. As he said, he spread out the scroll, released a corpse inside. This made Sasuke frown slightly. He didn't know this person, but he could feel a sense of closeness, and the clothes he wore actually had the Uchiha symbol. Who is he? They had also seen the immortal reincarnation technique, which required the soul of the deceased and a certain amount of flesh and blood of the deceased. Could it be that Orochimaru said that he knew everything, so he planned to summon an Uchiha person? Orochimaru looked at the person lying on the ground and shook his head slightly. I don't know who he is either. When you killed me, I wandered around the underworld. You may not know that the underworld is the pure land of the dead and the grave of the living. It is impossible for living people or even corpses to exist there. The pure land is like an illusory world, where only souls can exist. So after I was absorbed by Kabuto, he also gained some of my memories and became curious about this person. It was through unremitting efforts that I pulled this person out of the underworld. As he said this, he cut the arm of the corpse with a knife and took out a certain amount of blood. This stunned Sasuke and the other two. Suigetsu even exclaimed, is this corpse still alive? If Orochimaru didn't lie to them, this person must have been dead for at least a year. Ordinary people must have turned into dry bones. Orochimaru was also amazed. This is the magic of this corpse. He can still maintain his body's activity in the underworld full of death. This is incredible. Through Kabuto's research, this corpse seems to have a magical power that protects him from being eroded by the underworld. Speaking, Orochimaru looked at Sasuke. Sasuke has 6 spores on his body. Immortal reincarnation requires 4, and I need 1. Then he looked at the living dead on the ground. Kabuto also found 3 spores on him, enough. But those are 4 Hokage, and he used them to do bad things before. This time he summoned them out, maybe they would give him a blow. So he thought about it, spit out various instruments, and began to prepare test fluids for sealing. Soon, 5 syringes were made by him. Then he looked at everyone and said, I'm going to start, you guys step back. Sasuke and the other 2 immediately stepped back after hearing this. Orochimaru began his performance. As he put the death mask on his face and injected chakra into it, he summoned the death shadow. In an instant, Orochimaru felt that his soul was about to be pulled out. He hurriedly used his soul body to say to the death shadow, wait a minute, let me keep my soul first. I want to do a lot of things. As a reward, I will give you all 3 souls later. The death shadow was stunned, and his black and white eyes glanced at Orochimaru. Indeed, 3 souls were found in his body. 2 of them belonged to other people, and 1 was Orochimaru's own. He thought about it with his limited intelligence. He just let him stay for a little longer, but he could get 3 souls including him. This is a good deal. Oh. So he readily agreed. In this way, Orochimaru's soul was temporarily kept in his body and was not nailed to the death cross. Seeing this, Orochimaru breathed a sigh of relief. As I thought, the death god has intelligence, but not much. So Orochimaru let the death god cut his stomach. This was within the contract, and the death god Phantom could not resist, so he did it with some confusion. As the death god's stomach was cut open, 5 light blue balls of light all ran out. After one of them spun around, it fell into Orochimaru's hands. The next second, Orochimaru felt his hands for the first time in a long time. The originally numb perception now had a hint of coolness. His hands, back. Oh. He wanted to laugh wildly, but there was no time. So he immediately shouted, Chigo. On the way here, Orochimaru had already told him his thoughts, so Chigo naturally knew what to do next. He walked to Sasuke and the living dead and began to inject all his natural energy. This action made him shrink rapidly. Chapter 708. In front of the stone tablet of Nanga Shrine, Orochimaru looked at the 5 white zetsu placed in the core of the 5 immortal reincarnation arrays. He had prepared protective measures for these 5 white zetsu, and also injected the wood escape cells of the first generation of Woodmaster, which enhanced the accuracy and binding force. This is an ability that even Kabuto has never mastered, and it is 3 or 4 times stronger than the control power of spells. It is his strongest control method for this technique at present. At the same time, in front of the offerings of immortal reincarnation, their own information materials were placed. The first generation of Wood Senju Hashirama, the second generation of Senju Tobirama, the third generation of Sarutobi Hiruzen, the fourth generation of Namikaze Minato, and an unknown but very strange living dead. To be honest, if it weren't for the need to exchange the soul of a living being for one, Orochimaru really wanted to use this person's body to summon his soul. After everything was ready, Orochimaru also noticed that the god of death behind him was a little impatient. Yes, he probably never thought that by using his own death god dagger to cut open his stomach, he could release the person he had devoured. However, the time had not yet come, so he was just a little impatient, but did not take action. Orochimaru hurriedly looked at Suijutsu and shouted, "Are you ready?" Suijutsu opened the mouth of the 6th white zetsu, making it open so wide that he could almost fit a leg in. "Ready, Lord Orochimaru," Suijutsu said hurriedly. He was deeply afraid of Orochimaru, afraid that he would bring disaster to himself. Back in the base, he was often dragged by this man to do research experiments. Jago also absorbed the natural chakra of 2 spores to restore himself to normal. The remaining last one was sealed up and kept by Orochimaru for research purposes. Seeing this, Orochimaru immediately made seals with both hands. As his soul returned to his hands, he experienced the joy of making seals for the first time in a long time. Impure World Reincarnation Technique. With a loud shout, he slammed his hands on the ground, and at the same time, the chakra in his body also flowed into the Impure World array. Countless dust from the underworld flew out of the core part of the sacrifice. These dusts look like paper, but they are not paper. They are a kind of substance in the underworld, which is the paper ashes burned for the dead in the living world. So it is also called impure world. Of course, impure world does not only refer to paper ashes. This technique can pull the soul of the dead to the living world, but it is quite painful for the sacrifice. Because it is to tear the soul of the sacrifice from the flesh bit by bit, and fill the vacancy of the dead in the underworld. So that the underworld cannot temporarily detect the disappearance of the dead. With the painful roars of the 5 white zetsu, the 5 piles of impure world in the array immediately rose up, and soon outlined the appearance of the soul before death. After seeing this step, the god of death could not wait to pull out all 3 souls of Orochimaru and swallow them into his stomach. But at this moment, Orochimaru smiled at the god of death, as if mocking him. When he took off the mask and opened his mouth, a white snake with a strange shape and scales made of white snake head suddenly ran out of Orochimaru's mouth. Instantly sank into the body of White Zetsu controlled by Suijutsu. As he completely occupied White Zetsu's body, his chakra was also rapidly transforming this new body, and gradually, the appearance of Orochimaru appeared again. But the god of death was dumbfounded. He looked at the 2 souls in his hand, one female and one male, and his face became quite wonderful. "You, cheating!" He roared unwillingly, but he could exist in the world of the living because the mask had chakra. As the mask fell off, without the support of chakra, he, as the god of death, was rejected by the world of the living. Because he did not come to the world of the living through the regular way, it was considered sneaking, so the world of the living naturally wanted to persuade him to return. Just like that, the god of death disappeared in the shrine with an unwilling roar. Of course, only Sasuke, who has the eternal eye, and Orochimaru, the person involved, can see and hear this, and no one else can see it. Orochimaru looked at the person who emerged from the impure world with excitement. "Sasuke, this is the person who knows everything, the previous Hokage, and." As he said, he looked at the 5th person. "And the ancestors of your Uchiha clan." After he finished speaking, the person had changed from the white body of White Zetsu to the appearance of Orochimaru. The magical thing is that there are still clothes. At this time, the 5 people who came out of the impure world have come back to their senses. Naturally, they all saw Orochimaru and the other 4. Because of the experience of being summoned for the first time, the 2nd generation quickly understood what happened after a moment of coming back to their senses. "Is it that person called Orochimaru who summoned us again?" As soon as these words came out, the 1st generation's mind was in turmoil. "No," he asked directly, "what's going on?" He was used to it. As long as his brother was around, he would never use his brain. Because Tobirama was his external brain. According to the order, it was the turn of the 3rd generation to speak. He looked at the 1st generation and explained, "We are now in the body of the filthy earth. I guess the Imperial World reincarnation technique that sealed us was unlocked by Orochimaru." He was too familiar with Orochimaru. It seemed that there was no difficulty in the world that could stump him. It was a pity that he went astray. Then he looked at Orochimaru with a very complicated look. "Then you summoned us with Imperial World reincarnation." Hearing the explanation of the 3rd generation, Orochimaru smiled confidently. Very proud of this. Minato was a little shocked. As the user of this technique, he himself could not unlock it. He couldn't help but look at Orochimaru in surprise. "Orochimaru, you can actually unlock that seal, how did you do it? There is no unsolvable ninjutsu in this world, and Minato, you can't underestimate me too much." The last person shook his hand, and 3 Megatama gradually appeared in his eyes. Soon he suddenly realized, "So that's it, it seems that this is not my world." He naturally noticed Orochimaru's eyes. Although he was similar to the teacher Orochimaru in his memory, the chakra aura was very different. The man in front of him was a little quiet after madness. At the same time, he was very familiar with the scene here, and it was also one of the most exciting scenes in the original work. "Who are you?" The 1st generation and others naturally heard the words of the future, and all turned their heads to look at him. Even the 4 living people in the field were the same. They all looked curious. For this person, through Orochimaru, they already knew that he was not an ordinary person. Ordinary people are immortal for more than a year, especially in the underworld constructed of dead air. Mirai looked at everyone, smiled slightly, and said, "Nice to meet you, my name is Mirai, Uchiha Mirai, from another world." Hearing this, the 1st generation and Orochimaru couldn't help but feel a strong sense of curiosity. People from another world. Mirai thought about it and corrected, what you said is not quite correct, Nidame, Minato, you are all proficient in flying thunder god, you should know about parallel worlds, I was summoned to this world from another parallel world. As he said, he looked at the body on the ground. Although it was still active, it had no breath and no breath of life. However, the wound on its wrist has recovered as before. This surprised the future. I didn't expect that my recovery ability was so abnormal. Bullshit. I remembered that before I died, I had injected would release cell fluid. The second generation crossed his arms and looked at Uchiha Mirai coldly. You seem to be familiar with us. He had no good impression of Uchiha. Mirai smiled and said, of course. As he said that, he looked at Orochimaru, who also looked at him with great curiosity, his eyes full of inquiry. It was as if he wanted to dissect Mirai. Mirai felt a little strange about this. In his memory, teacher Orochimaru had never shown this expression to him. He couldn't help but walk in front of Orochimaru. The latter didn't avoid it, just looked at Mirai, and for some reason, he actually felt the closeness coming from this person. He couldn't help but restrain the inquiry in his eyes, frowned and asked, are you familiar with me? Mirai walked forward, looked at Orochimaru's appearance, and couldn't help but merge him with the mentor in his memory. Then he reached out and hugged Orochimaru in the astonished eyes of everyone. He said nostalgically, Teacher Orochimaru, long time no see. This action stunned Orochimaru, and even Sasuke, the third generation and other people who knew Orochimaru well, were all stunned. They all looked like they had seen a ghost. Especially Suijutsu, after being stunned for a moment, he exclaimed, fuck. Are you the illegitimate son of Orochimaru? She was so close to him. The third generation was also shocked and widened his eyes even bulged out, with an incredible look on his face. If it was Jiraiya who was hugged in the future, he might not be so shocked, no, he would not be shocked at all, but who is Orochimaru? He is a man who has already lost his humanity, how dare he? But the second generation on the side narrowed his eyes slightly. This Uchiha seems to be different. At this moment, the change happened. The mask discarded by Orochimaru suddenly floated up out of thin air, and a cold chakra emerged directly, making everyone shiver involuntarily. What the hell? Why do I feel colder? Orochimaru was also awakened by the chill, because he knew better than everyone else that the chill was directed at him. Then he saw the image of the mask floating, and his face suddenly became interesting. What? After the god of death was sent back to the world of the living, he became more and more angry, and the more angry he was, the more he couldn't help thinking. Well, the whole person was trapped in a dead loop. Finally, he couldn't bear it anymore, and immediately went to the world of the living in anger through the formal channels, wanting to find the snake and take back everything he had lost. If he knew that he had just lost 4 souls and a pair of hands. The return was only 2 ordinary souls. This deal was a big loss. The future naturally noticed the abnormality behind him. The temperature on his face quickly turned cold. He snorted coldly, looking for death. As he said that, he disappeared in an instant. Everyone in the field became solemn. So fast! Minato exclaimed, and he saw his own shadow in this man's movement skills. When the future appeared again, he had already grasped a ninja sword. The blade pierced straight into the heart of the god of death. Is that Kusanagi's sword? Jago murmured in shock. At this time, Sasuke was shocked to find that his ninja sword was not in the scabbard. At this moment, the god of death looked at the sword inserted into his chest with a confused face and felt his collapsing body. He was extremely confused in his heart. No, I just came to collect a debt, how come it's cold? Soon, his thoughts froze, because he had turned into ashes and disappeared. This scene was seen by Orochimaru, Sasuke, and the 4 Hokage. All of them looked very excited. The god of death is dead? Killed by someone? Chapter 709. The second generation narrowed his eyes and shouted solemnly. Oni-chan. I'm afraid this man's strength is not worse than yours. The first generation smiled slightly, because through the action just now, he saw that this man had the will of fire. Because he cherishes the people around him. With a wave of his hand, the future threw the ninja sword directly into Sasuke's scabbard. As masters of swords, the second generation, Sasuke, and even Suijutsu were shocked by the future's move. Still a strong swordsman. The future ignored them, but looked at Orochimaru, and the coldness on his face turned into a smile. Old Orochimaru. Lord Orochimaru. I helped you solve this death god, you can't be shameless in the future. Orochimaru looked at the man in front of him in a daze. Meaning, he is his own apprentice in the parallel world. Since it is a parallel world, then why didn't he see this person? Mirai turned to look at Sasuke, who was in a state of panic, smiled and said, "Don't be afraid, I'm still easy to talk to." He walked to Minato and hugged him with a smile. The action was very intimate and skillful. It made Minato feel that he and he were good friends. For the sake of his girlfriend, he could fuck him. But after all, it was the first time he met this person. He instinctively felt a little embarrassed by his intimate behavior. Do we know each other? Mirai rolled his eyes. Nonsense, in my world, I brought you and Kushina together, how can we not know each other? Looking at Minato's dazed expression, Mirai also put down his hand in boredom. After all, it's not him, even though he looks exactly the same. Alas! Thinking about Minato's 399th day, 2 hours, 57 minutes, and 18 seconds. The first generation was surprised that there was another dead person in the field. He asked curiously, "What about you, who are you?" For a moment, everyone in the field focused their attention on Minato. The latter was stunned. After he heard the first generation's words clearly, he immediately turned around confidently, pointed at his Hokage robe, and proudly said, "I am Namikaze Minato. My name is Namikaze Minato." When they saw the 5 words 4th generation Hokage, the 2 brothers Hashirama immediately became interested. The first generation said with a look of relief, "It has developed to the 4th generation." Compared to the eldest brother, the 2nd generation is more concerned about why the 4th generation is an impure world person. So he asked curiously, "How did you die?" Hearing this, Minato suddenly became embarrassed, but still said, I died from sealing the 9 tails. 1st generation, O_O. What the hell? Can sealing that thing kill people? But soon he remembered that he was hanging on the wall, and he couldn't use his own strength to infer other people. So he hurriedly restrained the confusion on his face. After all, this is a bit. Immediately changed his face and said with a smile, "Sorry, I'm not targeting you, the power of the 9 tails is really strong." It would be better if he didn't say it. When he said this, everyone was embarrassed. Except for Suijutsuo and Jago, the rest of them are from Hokage, how could they not know the 1st generation the great man's feat of holding the 9 tails with one hand? Hee. Minato was even more embarrassed. Seeing his good brother so embarrassed, Mirai immediately stood up and explained in detail, "This is not the main reason." As soon as he opened his mouth, everyone looked at him, and the latter continued to explain, "At the beginning, there was a masked man who took advantage of Kushina's delivery and sneaked into Konoha. At the moment Naruto was born, he wrapped Naruto with a detonating tag and used a trick to transfer Minato away. Then he released the 9 tails in Kushina's body in Konoha village and controlled it with the Sharingan dot." As he said, he patted Minato's shoulder, who looked stunned, and then said, after he settled Naruto, he went back immediately. Not only did he analyze the opponent's ability within 3 rounds, at the same time, because Kushina was directly extracted from the tailed beast, her life has entered the countdown. He glanced at Minato. Then he said, after that, he used the Shiki seal to separate the 9 tails into yin and yang. The yin 9 tails was sealed in his soul body, and then he used 2 4-symbol seals to form the 8-diagram seal to seal the yang 9 tails into the body of the newly born Naruto. After his explanation, the 1st and 2nd generations nodded in understanding. It seems that they underestimated the 4th generation. He is also a good Hokage. The 2nd generation also studied the sealing technique. After he pondered for a moment, he said in surprise, 2 4-symbol seals, good idea. It is already a mature Jinchuriki sealing technique. Restore the 9 tails chakra to your son's chakra, and then use it to reinforce the seal. 4th Hokage, your idea is excellent. After receiving the praise from the 2nd Hokage, Minato Namikaze couldn't help scratching his head, laughing, and then looked at the future. Found that the latter was grinning at him. The 1st Hokage asked curiously, since you are the 4th Hokage, who is the 5th Hokage? Hearing this, Orochimaru smiled with a wicked smile, it's your granddaughter, Tsunade. The 1st Hokage, Sigma, degree. What? When he thought of the scene of his granddaughter being spoiled by him, he felt bad. He hurriedly asked, that village doesn't owe foreign debts? Has she gambled it? Or sold it? Is there any problem? Minato died first, so he didn't know what the first generation's expression was. The first generation said with embarrassment, "It's too problematic, because she inherited my gambling addiction when she was 2 years old, and she is more ruthless than me. She always loses every time she gambles. In more than 10 years, I have only seen her win twice." Minato realized that the first generation cared about this matter. But, the Tsunade-sama in his memory, seems, really looks like a gambler. Teacher Jiraiya didn't know how much debt he helped her pay off. For a moment, he couldn't help but look at Orochimaru. He was also afraid that Tsunade would sell the village. After talking for so long, Shuya found that these people were not what he thought, especially the first generation of the god of ninja. He was too kind. Mirai interrupted, "None of this is important. Since Orochimaru summoned you, this person must have questions to ask," he said, looking at Sasuke. "Sasuke, _. Thank God, you still know me." Orochimaru also remembered the purpose of summoning them, so he hurriedly said, "Yes, please answer his questions, the previous Hokage." Seeing this scene, the second generation narrowed his eyes slightly. Sasuke had the Uchiha clan emblem on his body, another evil Uchiha clan. Hearing this, 3 people were unhappy on the spot. But Sasuke didn't dare to speak, and when he wanted to speak in the future, he was preempted by the first generation. He put away the awkward smile on his face and shouted coldly, "Tobirama." Tobirama was a little unhappy. His elder brother actually yelled at him for Uchiha again. He couldn't help but reply on the spot, "Brother, you know what the Uchiha is like. The first generation, they are part of the village, I don't allow you to say that about them." Sasuke, who was standing by, had already sensed something was wrong. Uchiha might not be what he thought. Orochimaru glanced at the outside world, and then urged, "Please answer this child's question first. The outside world is still in a war." Hearing this, the 4 shadows were stunned. The second and fourth generations immediately performed the perception technique. They soon sensed what was happening in the ninja world, and in an instant, their faces became wonderful. Especially Minato, he felt the breath of Naruto and the 9 tails. That was the breath that could only be produced after the hearts of one man and one beast were bound together. If you want to ask why, it's because he also knows this trick. Why are there so many sacrifices of the impure world ninja in the ninja world? Orochimaru, I invented immortal reincarnation, and you actually used it to create a war? Tobirama looked at Orochimaru coldly. This technique is a forbidden technique, only Konoha has it. Now there are so many sacrifices of the impure world ninja in the outside world, someone must have leaked this technique. In addition, Orochimaru had summoned them, suppressed their personalities, and controlled them to launch the Konoha collapse plan against Konoha. This gave him an idea that this ninja world war was provoked by Orochimaru. For a moment, he had a murderous intention towards Orochimaru. It made Orochimaru a little frightened. The second generation's momentum was too strong, and he had some palpitations. He hurriedly made seals with both hands, trying to control the second generation. I have tampered with their impure world bodies, and each of them has a special snake. Mirai immediately stood in front of Orochimaru and looked at him coldly, "Speak nicely, don't touch me." Seeing Mirai, the second generation couldn't help but feel a little angry. "Born evil Uchiha, I will send you to hell now." As he said this, he raised a finger. Instantly, light blue chakra instantly boiled up. This shrine was carefully designed by Uchiha, and stability was the top priority. But when the second generation exploded, the walls, the ground, and even the sky, the ceiling was trembling slightly, and a few cracks appeared like spider webs. This burst of momentum melted Suijutsu, and even Orochimaru was sweating all over. Mirai immediately opened his Mangekyo, blocked Orochimaru and the others, and looked at the second generation coldly. He stepped slightly harder. In an instant, a more powerful aura of oppression burst out from his lean body. Second generation, speak properly. The third and fourth generations looked gloomy. They were not surprised that the second generation had such a strong momentum, but they were surprised that the boy in front of them also had such a strong momentum. At this time, the first generation hurriedly stepped out to smooth things over and said, Okay, stop making trouble." As he said that, he looked at Tobirama and shouted, "Put down your finger." As he said that, he looked at Mirai, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. My brother is a straightforward person, please don't mind it. Seeing the first generation say this, Mirai didn't say anything more and retracted his momentum. At this time, the first generation found that his brother was still bursting with momentum, and couldn't help frowning. He also burst out his momentum and blocked Tobirama. Tobirama. Hearing his elder brother's words, the second generation reluctantly put down his fingers, turned his face away and snorted coldly. Humph. But that look was somewhat aggrieved. Mirai then looked at Suzuki, who had been neglected until now, and said, "You asked Lord Orochimaru to summon us because of the Uchiha incident." When this was said, everyone was shocked again. The strength is unfathomable, and the brain is also first class. Chapter 710. He glanced at the four Hokage, then at Suzuki, and before he could ask, he took the initiative to continue. You must be confused about what a ninja is, what an Uchiha is. Suzuki, 0. Oh no. Could this man's Sharingan have the ability to see through people's hearts? He knows what I'm thinking before I say anything. But this is what I want to know the most. Because Itachi was still proud of being a Konoha ninja until his death. He was puzzled. That's right. He bowed his head and responded. I know something about this. Mirai said, and the Sharingan in his eyes transformed into the Manjiki level. He looked at the four shadows and said, I just know something. You might as well stay and listen. After all, I almost became Madara's spokesperson and was killed by him. The four shadows who originally wanted to rush to the battlefield immediately were all stunned when they heard this. They were all curious about what Mirai said. Seeing this, Mirai also knew their thoughts. So he said, well, don't resist my illusion. Let's talk in the illusion. This will save most of the time. The few people looked at each other. They had a preliminary understanding of this person and it was unlikely that he would be disadvantageous to them. So they gave up resistance, and the second generation did the same. What's more, no one knows Uchiha better than him. Seeing this, Mirai chuckled. Sharingan illusion. Just like this, in the illusion world, Mirai explained the ins and outs of the matter to everyone. It's a long story, I'll start from the time of the emperor. At that time, there was a goddess with white eyes, who fell from the sky. Mirai said, and at the same time transformed into different characters, which surprised everyone. Especially Orochimaru. He realized that the combination of Ashura and Indra's chakra can lead to the power of the six paths, allowing Indra or Ashura's reincarnation to activate the Samsara eye. You know, he has been thinking about this pair of eyes for a long time. But pain and others are too strong, he has no chance of winning. Half an hour in the illusion, 3 seconds in reality. Everyone opened their eyes again, each of them was worried and silent. Among them, Hashirama was shocked. It turns out that I and Madara have this connection. Minato was stunned and heartbroken. He didn't expect that the masked man at that time would be Obito. Obviously that child was so optimistic, silly, how could he become so sinister? Hashirama sighed, no wonder I thought he was pleasing to the eye when I first saw him. As the first generation spoke, Suijutsu couldn't help but complain. This is a family fight. Why don't we just write a book called Little Kuriko Saves His Mother? Everyone ignored him. Orochimaru looked at Suzuki and asked, so what do you think? Hearing this, everyone looked at Suzuki, who pursed his lips and said with a firm look, first, seal Madara and Black Zetsu. I will never allow anyone to destroy the ninja world that Itachi is willing to protect with his life. Hearing this, the first generation was immediately excited. He gave Suzuki a thumbs up and smiled with brilliant white teeth. Good boy, you can still tell right from wrong when facing the big issues, you are worthy of being a member of Madara's clan. As he said that, he raised his arm and shouted, okay, let's go. Just as Hashirama was about to jump out of the shrine and find Madara to reminisce about the past, he was stopped by the second generation. Wait a minute, big brother. The first generation almost stumbled, he turned his head to look at the second generation, and asked with some confusion, what's wrong again? Tobirama looked at the future, narrowed his eyes and asked, what about you? What are you going to do? Everyone was stunned, and then they realized that this Uchiha future was not from their world. So he had no obligation to save their world, but he couldn't let him go. If he had bad intentions, they would be very difficult. Hearing this, the future narrowed his eyes slightly, I'll go with you. I was killed by Madara at the beginning. This time I want to see how much difference there is between him and me. Hearing this, the second generation and others breathed a sigh of relief. This is a rare fighting force. If he stands on the side of himself and others, it would be a blessing. After the future expressed its position, several people set out and jumped out of the shrine. The first generation stood on the high building, looking at the current Konoha, their eyes full of relief. Today's Konoha has developed better than when they were there. Too many. Tsuna is a good village manager. The first generation said proudly to the second generation. The second generation couldn't help but curl his lips. Don't you see whose granddaughter she is? They are the Thousand Hands, unrivaled in the world. At this moment, a red-haired girl in prison uniform rushed up and was about to beat Shoyu, but suddenly saw the handsome profile of the future. She was stunned. Handsome guy? And he was a more mature handsome guy than Suzuki. She immediately grabbed Shoyu's collar and asked in a low voice with a red face, he looks like a pot. Sichuan and Chongqing accent. Poor Shoyu was a little miserable, but he didn't dare not answer, because Xiangling was not a lady at all and was quite irritable. He hurriedly explained, the Uchiha in another world is very powerful. Orochimaru turned his head to look at Xiangling and shouted with some emotion. Isn't this Xiangling? How did you find this place? Hearing this, Xiangling immediately had someone to complain to. She hurried to Orochimaru and pointed at Suzuki and complained bitterly, Lord Orochimaru, Suzuki stabbed me. Hearing this, Orochimaru glanced at Suzuki and couldn't help shrugging. What a coincidence, I was stabbed by him too. Xiangling. How could I forget this? The first person Suzuki stabbed was Orochimaru. Mirai glanced at everyone, and then he turned his head to look at his own corpse in his hand. After thinking about it, he used the hand of his corpse to make a seal. Snake swallowing technique. After the words fell, two brand new knives immediately emerged from the mouth of the corpse. This scene made Orochimaru's heart move slightly. This technique is his signature ninjutsu. He didn't even teach Suzuki, but the man in front of him actually knows this move. It seems that the self in another world trusts him very much. At this time, the four Hokage had already seen Konoha, and immediately ran towards the battlefield of the ninja realm with excitement. The mood of the four Hokage was very complicated, but it can be summarized in 12 words. Hashirama, think of Banban. Tobirama, kill Banban. Sarutobi, let's fight. Minato, think of Naruto. After swallowing his own body, Mirai also caught up with them. However, the speed of the four Hokage was very fast. After all, Xiangling and the others were still a little far from the masters, and they were soon left behind. Seeing this, Mirai followed Orochimaru. Shoyu looked at the future swallowing his body, and asked in surprise, Orochimaru in your world seems to be very good to you. Suzuki followed the cages and went away. Chugo, Xiangling and Orochimaru looked at the future curiously. The latter smiled and said, of course, I am still a contracted ninja of Ryokai Cave. Orochimaru's eyes were full of brilliance. To be honest, as he came into contact with the future more and more, he became more interested in his other world. But he had to get through this war first. If they were all hit by infinite moon reading, it would be useless for him to understand it. So he said, Mirai-kun, why don't you go with the third generation first, and we will go to the 5 cage. According to the perception of Minato and the others, they all knew that Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obito were on different battlefields. Just now, the future said that he wanted to settle accounts with Madara. So Orochimaru said this. Mirai thought about it and realized that Orochimaru and the others had enough ability to save their lives, and even destroyed a Fiai's wooden man. Okay. Then I'll go first. As he said that, his figure disappeared in front of everyone. This made Orochimaru sigh with emotion. As expected, he grew up with Minato, and his speed was really fast enough. Soon, Mirai caught up with the 4th generation and the others. Behind them were the 1st generation, the 2nd generation, the 3rd generation, and finally Suzuki. Minato, your speed is still so fast. Mirai sighed. As expected, he is the fastest man in the ninja world, and his speed is awesome. Minato smiled gently and complimented, your speed is not bad either. Of course, in order to defeat Minato in my world, I have studied speed techniques a lot. Not long after, they arrived at the battlefield. When Minato saw the huge black ball in the distance, his face changed again and again. What a huge-tailed beast ball! It is estimated to be at least 60 meters in diameter. Once it explodes, the power will be unimaginable. As he said this, he threw a trident kunao directly to the seashore. I took a kunao and quickly caught up with the tailed beast ball. When it was about to explode, and moved it away. Just when everyone in Tiantian hadn't recovered from despair, a kunao suddenly appeared in front of Naruto. Then, a yellow-haired figure suddenly appeared out of thin air. He smiled and said, "Am I late?" But Naruto seemed to have known that Minato was coming back. He chuckled and said, "No, I came just in time." As he said that, he looked at the black-haired man who was holding his waist knife with one hand, and smiled, "Why did you come to my world, brother Future?" Future was stunned, looked back at Naruto in surprise, and said in surprise, "It turned out to be you." "Yes, this is my world." But as he was talking, he suddenly frowned, "Brother Future, why did you die?" In his impression, Uchiha Future was very strong. He could even single-handedly kill the centipede in the dragon vein state. How could he be a body of reincarnation now? The people behind Naruto were all a little confused. I always feel that this world has become a little bit mysterious. Sakura, who was treating Naruto, said in a daze, "Future? He is the Uchiha you mentioned in Lulin, the one you met in another world." Naruto nodded heavily. "That's him." Chapter 711. In a different space. After listening to the future, Obito finally understood why the ancestor named Uchiha would find the future master. It turned out to be for the infinite Tsukuyomi plan. If he was the most open-minded, he might think that the immortal reincarnation technique was indeed a ninjutsu leading to peace. But when he heard that this technique was just to gather the chakra of the whole world and revive Kagaya Otsutsuki, he no longer had any hope for this technique. He stood on the top of the mountain for a long time, and the master's chakra had been consumed and disappeared. "Master, don't worry, I will never be fooled." Thinking of this, he looked in the other direction of the mountain top, where two knives were inserted. It was the master's blood drink and the mad sword. There were two eyeballs next to it. This was the relic left by the master for them. Just as he was about to walk over and pull out the two knives, a hand suddenly passed him and directly grasped the mad sword. Obito was shocked. He didn't expect that there were other people in the space in his eyes. He turned his head and found that it was an old acquaintance. "Shisui. Why are you everywhere?" Shisui didn't answer, but looked at the mad sword with a brilliant look. Closer. He was getting closer and closer to the knife platform. Obito realized his intention at this time and hurriedly accelerated and chased after Shisui. "Stop!" he shouted anxiously. With Shisui's personality, he would definitely hand over his master's relics to the Konoha high-level officials. This is absolutely disadvantageous for Uchiha, and he would not allow it. But Shisui suddenly turned around and slapped Obito's chest without any defense. In an instant, it directly slapped Obito to stagger and stopped him from rushing forward. "Shisui, you can't touch Tessaigan." Shisui grabbed the mad sword regardless of anything. For the relationship between Uchiha and Konoha, we Uchiha must not have this sword. But just as Shisui's hand was getting closer and closer, his eyes were already showing ecstasy. Suddenly, a spark of electricity flashed across the mad sword. After Shisui got closer, two more sparks of electricity appeared on the mad sword. The next second, Shisui had already grasped the mad sword and was about to pull it out of the knife stand. But something strange happened. 3 sparks of electricity had already appeared on the scabbard, and each one was larger than the previous one. In an instant, Shisui's hand was bounced away. He looked at this scene with a look of astonishment, and his eyes were even more unbelievable. "Tessaigan, reject me." Obito finally caught up, panting, looking at Shisui with regret, and he was very speechless. "See, even the master doesn't agree with your idea." Hearing this, Shisui came back to his senses. He shook his hand again in dissatisfaction. In an instant, a bigger electric spark hit his hand directly, and his hand was burned. "If you can do it, you can do it," Shisui said angrily to Obito with a dark face. Hearing this, Obito couldn't help but hesitate. He glanced at the electric sparks gradually disappearing on the scabbard, and was a little at a loss. The master didn't tell him that there were restrictions on the blade. He just hesitated for a while and then directly grasped the mad sword. What surprised him was that there was no electric spark on the blade. In an instant, Obito showed ecstasy, while Shisui's face became extremely ugly. How is it possible? Why did Tessaigan choose Obito? I don't accept it. As he said, he grabbed Tessaigan. He thought that it must be because he had used up the energy of the restriction when he grabbed it before, so Obito picked up the knife. This time Obito did not dodge, but let him take it openly. He had already obtained some information from the knife. Just when Shisui's hand touched the mad knife, a spark of electricity bounced towards him again, and his hand flew away. The arm that was hit immediately saw blood and flesh. Shisui, wake up, your idea is wrong in itself. Tessaigan can only form a balance among us Uchiha. Obito looked at Shisui who was looking at the knife in his hand with a dull face, and shook his head with some regret. Alas! Shisui, grow some brains. As he said that, he was going to pull out the blood drink, but a scene that surprised him happened. An electric current also burst out from the blood drink, and his hand flew away. The scene that happened to Shisui just now was repeated on Obito. Obito soon understood this. The crazy blade was left to me by my master, so this blood drink is what my master left for you. As he said this, he stopped using the blood drink and the two eyeballs were taken out. There was still fresh blood on them, and the eyeballs were still warm. It seemed that this space prevented the passage of time. After hearing what Obito said, Shisui turned his head blankly and looked at the blood-drinking sword on the knife stand. He reached out and grasped it. For some reason, his master's words flashed through his mind again. Shisui, is there anyone you want to protect? This time, the blood-drinking sword did not emit sparks, and was taken away by Shisui smoothly. Seeing this scene, Obito turned around and left. He must tell Lord Orochimaru about this. In reality, when Obito came to his senses, he found that there were two more things in his hands. At the same time, the master's last words came to his mind. Obito, give these eyes to my sister. After the words fell, Obito could no longer feel the master's chakra, and his eyes blurred a little. My nose was sour. No matter what, he was just a child. He murmured to himself, don't worry, master. At this time, Orochimaru's voice came, and he looked at Obito in surprise. His eyes fell on the knife in his hand. He was very familiar with this knife, and he often used it to stab his neck in the future. He hurriedly supported Obito's shoulders and asked anxiously, how is it? Is your master's body in there? After being shaken by Orochimaru, Obito finally came back to his senses. He shook his head and said, no, only the master left a chakra with the transfer seal. After he told me some past events, he disappeared. Hearing this, Orochimaru became anxious, and his hands unconsciously increased the strength, asking, did he say how to revive him? Or, how to find his body? Obito's face became more bitter. No, that chakra just said that he was just used to leave information, and he didn't know what the master planned to do next. Hearing this, Orochimaru was stunned for a moment, and a trace of pain flashed in his eyes. How can he revive people without a body? Immortal reincarnation is useless. At this time, under their feet, Shisui also came back to his senses. He looked at the blood drink in his hand, his expression was extremely lonely, and then he left here without looking back. Obito was a little confused. Wait, where's my Rin? Because he found that Rin was gone. It turned out that there was only a male corpse in the hole he dug. At this time, Orochimaru suddenly noticed the mad knife in Obito's hand. If I remember correctly, in the future, this knife will be used to split the alternate space, and then drag Uchiha Madara to death together. Thinking of this, he immediately rekindled hope. He hurriedly grabbed Obito's arm again and said anxiously, Obito, try to see if you can let Tessaigan use the move to split the alternate space. Obito did not draw his knife, but pointed at the dead body on the ground. He was so anxious that he almost cried. He asked anxiously, Lord Orochimaru, have you seen Rin's body? She was still here just now, why is she gone? Orochimaru didn't care about Rin, he just wanted Obito to split the alternate space. However, he also understood the importance of Lin to Obito, so he said in a few words, there is no such thing as Lin. It's just Shisui who deceived you with transformation technique and illusion. Obito, Sigma. What? Lin is not here. Is it Shisui who transformed? In an instant, the beautiful scenery in the cave immediately emerged in his mind. The most important thing is that he also kissed him mouth to mouth. He also stuck out his tongue, and licked it. When he thought of this, he suddenly found that the taste of leek boxes on his tongue was n times stronger. Not only that, the original happiness turned into a strong nausea. 0q. In an instant, he only felt his stomach churning, and as his throat moved, all the buns he had eaten in the morning were vomited out by him. Seeing Obito like this, Orochimaru knew in his heart that he could not rely on him for the time being. He immediately drew out the mad sword. The restrictions on the sword would naturally not reject him. Then he injected chakra into it. In an instant, the narrow blade immediately turned into the shape of Tessaigan. He was a future teacher, so he naturally knew that he could solidify his abilities on the blade in the future. So he closed his eyes and carefully felt everything on the blade. In an instant, countless information flooded into his mind. Wind wound, explosive flow break, Vajra spear break. These were the information Tessaigan fed back to him, and at the same time, there were virtual images of countless figures practicing, which appeared one by one in his mind. Soon he opened his eyes and said with great joy, "I found it, Miyata Zanjayu Ippo." As he thought, the Tessaigan in his hand had turned into the color of the dark starry sky. After seeing that the sword had become exactly the same as the one in the memory obtained from Obito, Orochimaru instantly became extremely happy. He swung it directly at the open space. In an instant, a semicircular space was opened by him. He was delighted and quickly stretched out the perception snake and threw it into the space. Chapter 712. The future has fought with the impure world Madara for dozens of moves. Because of his impure world body, he can only exert less than 80% of his strength. Fortunately, Orochimaru used it with high precision this time. It can be compared with the impure world body specially made by Kabuto for Madara. Uchiha Madara landed not far away, looking at the future with a look of doubt. "When did a person like you appear in my Uchiha clan?" The future held the mad knife, smiled and said, "Madara, in another world, I lost to you, but this time, you are sure to lose." He didn't care about the future's words, but was amused by his words. He laughed wildly, "Ha ha ha ha. Boy, I admit that you are really good, but do you think you can beat me?" The future rushed up with a knife, "Just try it and you will know." So the two of them fought again. The Hokage who opened 4 bottles of Wanglaoji, half of their minds were on the battle between Madara and the future. They looked at Mirai, who was fighting back and forth with Madara in every move, and couldn't help but smile in their hearts. From the current point of view, this person is on their side. He can withstand Madara's attack. This is the best for them. Mirai finally discovered that with his 100% unlocking, he can use the power of Tessaigan to the maximum extent. You know, when he was still alive, he was abused by Madara. As a result, in this world, although Madara's power is not at its peak, with the help of the impure world body and the assistance of the reincarnation eye, he can exert nearly 80% of his peak power. He can barely exert 80% of his power. Rounding off, he is already on par with Madara. How can he not be excited and excited? My strength may have reached the peak of the super shadow. Finally, Mirai seized the opportunity and chopped down with a move, leaving Madara with no way to avoid it, so he could only raise his fan to resist. This opportunity is so important that Mirai will certainly not let it go. He smiled at Madara. He shouted loudly, "Madara, it's my turn to kill you this time. Vajra Bakuri Yuha." Since Tessaigan was 100% unlocked, Mirai knew what it meant to fully exert the power of Tessaigan. Because this 100% is the weakest level, he can also combine all the forms and moves of Tessaigan. For example, the combination of Vajra Spear Break and Bakuri Yuha. Of course, he can't do this at the moment because his impure world body limits his strength and his performance. Madara was caught off guard for a moment and was about to be hit by Mirai's move at 0 distance. But he was not worried at all. Instead, he imitated Mirai and sneered. "Kid, you are still too young. The world of ninja is very dangerous." As he said that, the round fan in his hand directly faced Mirai's sword. Prepay milkshake. The fan in his hand is called Uchiha Flame Fan, which is the treasure of the Uchiha clan passed down from generation to generation. It is said that it was made by the ancestors of the Uchiha clan using branches of the sacred tree. Not only is it extremely hard, it can also release wind escape without seals and enhance the power of fire escape. The most important thing is that it has extremely strong toughness and can rebound the enemy's ninjutsu attack. As for the strength of the rebound, it depends on the strength of the user. As Madara's words fell, the fan in his hand quickly lit up with a dazzling brilliance. It pierced everyone in the field. Senju Hashirama's face changed drastically, and he hurriedly reminded, "Young man, your ancestor's move can rebound ninjutsu, you get out of the way. Mirai seemed to have heard nothing, and still looked at Uchiha Madara behind the fan. He smiled and said, Madara, this move of mine is not a ninjutsu. And he never used Vajra spear break in this battle. What impressed Madara the most was the Bakuri Yuha that absorbed the ninjutsu attack and then rebounded it. In the name of the move he called out just now, there was a word Bakuri Yuha. Obviously, Madara mistakenly thought that the move he performed was an enhanced version of Bakuri Yuha. Although it is true. But their attacks have already collided with each other. A scene that surprised Madara happened. His flame fan did not work. It did not absorb any ninjutsu and was transformed into wind escape and blew out. But it was not without effect. At least it blocked the diamond flow released by the future sword. And this move of the future is no longer just spitting out diamonds. It has evolved into a diamond vein, and it looks like a crazy growing diamond branch. It directly pushed Madara away. The first stage, fix the enemy. Completed. Madara was shocked to find that he could not move. His limbs were all tightly blocked by the diamond branches, and some parts even had piercing wounds. What? Before Madara could exclaim, Mirai swung his sword again. His action was like a general's order, and the branches began to explode madly from the roots. Countless golden torrents appeared, like sharp needles. And they rotated at high speed, like small explosion flow tornadoes. They were like soldiers who had received orders, and they charged towards the impure world Madara fearlessly. In an instant, the whole world was shrouded in dazzling golden light, so that everyone hurriedly covered their eyes for fear of being blinded by the strong light. At the same time, as the torrents all blasted towards one place, this change directly rolled up the airflow in the field, and in an instant, a violent storm was formed. Like a typhoon, they carried the sand, gravel, and dust that rolled up all over the sky, and blew towards Madara together. This time it was no longer a rumbling explosion, but a violent sound caused by countless sharp objects blowing through the air. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sound was very sharp, and the faces of the coalition forces and others changed again and again. Even Hashirama and others were somewhat surprised by the strength of Future's move. Although they could endure it, ordinary people with low strength could not. All closed their eyes, covered their ears, and their faces were full of pain. Fortunately, Future's move disappeared quickly. As the storm blew the field clearly, everyone cheered immediately. Because Madara only had a head left. But even if it was a head, it was only half. If a normal person's head became like this, he would have died long ago, but Madara was different. He was now a dirty body and could recover. It's just that he couldn't move during the recovery period. The coalition forces were excited because this was a good opportunity. Someone immediately shouted loudly, "Sealing Squad, hurry up!" Yes. Instantly, several sealed ninjas stood up in the crowd. Although their faces were full of pain, they would not give up now that hope was in front of them. So countless scrolls, sealing talismans, and sealing techniques all greeted Madara. The body of immortal reincarnation has a core, which is the core that allows the people of the impure world reincarnation to be immortal. Even if they are blown to ashes, they can gather together and be resurrected. And this core is difficult to destroy. After the Future swung the knife, he narrowed his eyes slightly when he saw Madara being sealed. His intuition told him that Madara would not be subdued so easily. Just as he was secretly alert, his eyes suddenly condensed and looked in another direction. Suddenly, a group of chakra that he was very familiar with appeared out of thin air. He looked stunned. Orochimaru. Teacher. He was not calling Orochimaru of this world, but the teacher of his world. Since he found this world, it means he can go back. He wanted to rush over there immediately. After all, he missed the people in his world too much, but he thought of something, and he looked at the three new generation horrors. At this moment, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura each rushed towards the split body of the 10 tails. He immediately flashed to Naruto's side and said to the stunned Naruto, "Naruto, I think I may have to go back." Naruto hit and smashed the attacking heavy hammer split body. With a moment of safety, he asked in surprise, "Future big brother, are you going back?" "Well, my teacher is here to pick me up." Hearing this, Naruto sensed something strange. There were two familiar chakras on the battlefield in the distance. It's just that they were together, so he didn't notice this abnormality for a while. Thinking about it, he smiled gratefully at the Future. He imitated the thick-browed teacher, grinned at the Future, raised his thumb and said, "Thank you, brother Future, please leave the rest to us, our world must be protected by ourselves." Hearing this, the future smiled. He looked at the two people who fell beside Naruto, thought for a while and said, Sasuke, Sakura, I don't think Madara can be subdued so easily. As a parting gift, this will be given to you. As he said, he glared and led three people into the illusion, telling them the story of Kuriko saving his mother. At the same time, he left the power of Tessaigan to Sasuke's Kusanagi sword, and left the healing blade to Sakura. These are two swords that contain my power. One is dedicated to killing things in the underworld and resurrecting a partner who has just died. There are no side effects, but only can be used 3 times. Sasuke, you also use a knife, you should have seen my operation, the power I leave for you can only be used 3 times. Sakura heard it and immediately smiled gratefully. Thank you, brother future. Good man. Good people have a peaceful life. Sasuke looked at his Kusanagi sword with some doubts. He found that this knife had some unfamiliar abilities, but combined with the battle of this person just now, he quickly understood. Then he looked at the people of the same race in front of him from another world. However, he couldn't say thank you, so he turned his head coldly, left the illusion, and killed the split body in the outside world. This made Naruto angry. Fortunately, Future stopped him in time. He said, Naruto, this is my Mangekyo power, I will give it to you. Hearing this, Naruto's expression froze. Then he took the black chakra handed over by the Future with some joy. Can I get a pair of Mangeki? He has been looking forward to Sasuke's cool eyes since he was a child. Future scratched his head with a smile and said, it's possible, but you also know that I am now a filthy body, so it is limited. Enough. With the gift from the future elder brother, they are more confident about the subsequent battles. He looked at the black chakra in his hand, but was surprised. What a warm feeling, not the kind of coldness of Sasuke. Future just smiled and didn't say anything. Just kidding, his eyes are completely unique, how could he be like other Uchiha? As for the ghosts, what they felt on the other side was just the product of the fusion of their killing intent and fighting intent, and then they mistakenly thought it was hatred. Chapter 713. On another battlefield. Mirai rushed over in a hurry and saw 2 identical people confronting each other. They were so close that their noses were almost touching and their eyes were looking at each other. Teacher Orochimaru. Although he didn't know how long he hadn't seen him, Mirai could still tell which of the 2 was his teacher at a glance. Hearing the voice he had longed for, Teacher Orochimaru's body trembled noticeably. He no longer cared about facing his other self in the other world, and hurriedly turned his head to look in the direction of the future. He didn't even care that his mouth touched the other's mouth. This made Xiangling, who had been paying attention, very excited, and punched Suijutsu one punch after another, and smashed her to pieces. Ah, drop! The kiss of Lord Orochimaru was actually taken away by his other self in the other world. This is a gay. It's really exciting. Omega. I really hope Sasuke can give his kiss to me. Hee. Mirai flew directly into the arms of Orochimaru and hugged him tightly. Teacher, I miss you so much. Orochimaru hugged him instinctively, and his eyes were slightly moist for a moment. He could hear the excitement in Mirai's voice, and he was the same. It's been a year, we have been looking for you for a year. Although it was only a short year, looking back on the past, Orochimaru felt that it had been 10 years. As he was talking, Mirai suddenly found that Orochimaru's whole body was glowing. He had seen this light once, when he saw Naruto going back in Lulin, it was also this light. Teacher Orochimaru naturally noticed this change. He glanced at himself in this world, thought about it, and said, thank you for preserving his body. We are all one, so I don't have anything to give you. This complete version of Kime no Jutsu and some of my memories are all given to you. As he said that, he stretched out his hand and a fluorescent light emerged from his finger, which was pointed at the forehead of Master Orochimaru in this world. The latter did not dodge, and his intuition told him that this person would not harm him. And this light worked on him. The next moment, he fell into a brief daze. Obviously, the memory of Teacher Orochimaru had a great impact on him. After Teacher Orochimaru finished speaking, he looked at the future, nodded and said, let your body out, I will take you home. Just now, he had obtained some information about himself from another self. Okay. The future nodded, then opened his mouth and spit out his body cleanly. This made Shoiyu and the others look at Lord Orochimaru. Look at him, he takes things from his stomach so cleanly, but why does he always bring some mucus to Lord Orochimaru? Is it because mucus can act as a lubricant? But the Uchiha Mirai in front of him is fine. Mirai ignored them and unleashed the immortal reincarnation technique in front of Lord Orochimaru, allowing his soul to escape from the filthy earth body. Then he was sealed to his corpse by teacher Orochimaru using the sealing technique. Then he disappeared from this world with Mirai's corpse. Tisk tisk tisk. They are really worthy of being master and apprentice. They both like to give gifts. Xiangling looked at the Vajra seal scroll in her hand and looked at the people around her. They all had different scrolls in their hands. Then she looked at Lord Orochimaru who was still digesting. She couldn't help but sigh. Shuiyu said in surprise, "Does that mean the man called Future also sent something?" "Well, I sensed that Harano Sakura had his sword in her hand, Sasuke had the Kusanagi sword in his hand, and that man's chakra, and Uzumaki Naruto, who has the power of the Manjiki in his body." Shuiyu. After a moment of silence, he couldn't help but glance at his master. Look at Lord Orochimaru in other worlds, and then look at the several worlds in his own world. Alas! I want to change another master to follow, is that okay? Suddenly, Lord Orochimaru seemed to sense something and glanced at him coldly. Shuiyu. Shuiyu. He was so scared that he quickly retreated 100 steps away. Obito had recovered from the shock and disgust of having his first kiss taken away by Shisui. He looked at the different space that appeared in front of him and paced back and forth anxiously. Why hasn't Lord Orochimaru come back yet? Just as he was muttering for who knows how many times, Orochimaru's figure slowly appeared in the different space. Since Miyadu Zangzuha was not used by Orochimaru to attack, there was naturally no suction. Obito saw when Orochimaru and the boy on his back looked excited, their faces suddenly became excited. He was too familiar with that person, the one they thought about day and night and couldn't sleep every night. Master! Master! As he said that, he moved first and threw himself directly on Orochimaru, looking at Mirai in ecstasy as if he was falling asleep. In Konoha village. Today, a big event happened that shocked all the high-level officials, all the Uchiha, and all the noble families. Orochimaru and Obito found the body of Uchiha Mirai. Now, in Orochimaru's mansion, there are countless people who can cover the sky with one hand in Konoha. Minato and his new generation naturally need not say much, the patriarchs of the Uchiha, Hyuga, and Akimichi families, the Inyazuka, Abarame, Kurama and other small and medium-sized families. The 3 elders of Konoha, various young elders, and the Hokage are all in the room. The captain of the Anbu, Hitaki Sakumo, the vice-captain, Mitarashi Shisho. The border officials, Kato Dan, Kumoku. The 3 ninjas of Konoha, Jiraiya, Tsunade. Kakashi and Team 7 were also very excited. Originally, Orochimaru wanted to send Mirai back to his home, but he knew that once the people in the upper echelons knew that he had found the body of the Uchiha, not to mention other families, even the upper echelons of Konoha would not be able to sit still. They would all run to the Uchiha's home. But with the gap between the Uchiha and the upper echelons over the years, it would be strange if they didn't start to fight. So they just took the body of Mirai back to his home. In the room, among the crowd, there was a short-haired little loli. She curiously held the hand of Noeki, and looked into the crowd from time to time. She looked like a curious baby. She had never seen a person who could affect the entire upper echelons of Konoha. Even teacher Orochimaru was unprecedentedly out of control, and he was very happy. It was totally different from the way he treated her. Brother, is that person Uchiha Mirai? She could feel that the brother holding her hand was trembling slightly, as if he was very excited. Hearing this, Noeki nodded heavily. Yes, it's your second brother, the annoying one. I tell you, Hongdu, don't get in touch with him too much in the future, he will lead you astray. Hongdu. She raised her head and looked at Noeki in a daze, and then looked at the person on the bed surrounded by the crowd. She was a little puzzled. The second brother was so handsome, what was wrong with him? Linghua was wiping the body of Mirai, her face was full of joy. Her eyes were red, obviously she had just cried with excitement. Jiraiya held Tsunade's hand. He had been very low-key over the years, mainly because he was afraid of being beaten by Tsunade. He also calmed down. Well, I was distracted by physics. He reached out and patted Orochimaru's shoulder, and said happily for his friend, finally, we found his body. Now you can have a good rest. The corners of Orochimaru's mouth were always upturned, and he looked very amiable. Hee hee. Finally, Our efforts were not in vain. In the crowd, Kushina also held Minato's hand tightly. When Mirai died, she was really afraid that Minato would turn evil and embark on the path of a villain. After all, before Grandma died, they all guessed who would become the guide of the disaster. Minato. Minato didn't speak, but took a deep breath to calm himself down. He looked at Kushina with a smile in his eyes. Mirai is finally back. Now that his body has been found, it has become too easy to revive Mirai. Just when all the high-level people in Konoha were extremely excited about finding Uchiha Mirai's body, a member of the Anbu rushed to the side of the third generation in a hurry. He said anxiously, "Third generation, urgent news from the ninja world." He handed a scroll to the third generation with a complicated expression. His appearance also calmed the excited atmosphere in the field. Everyone looked at the third generation in confusion. What happened in the ninja world again? But it is probably not related to Konoha. After all, after the Third World War, the other four major countries are almost in name only. Only Konoha continues to dominate. But maybe. The third generation frowned and opened the information. There were a few big words on it. 7 of the 9-tailed beasts have been forcibly taken away by the masked woman. Seeing this sentence, not only the third generation, but also the people around him, changed their faces. The tailed beasts were taken away? 7. How is this possible? The tailed beasts are an important force in a village, and are also important guardians of a large ninja village. How could they be taken away so easily? Even if they were taken away, it is impossible that they were almost at the same time. The third generation put away the scroll, glanced at Kushina, and then said to Minato, "Minato, come with me." As he said that, he walked towards the side room. The 3 elders naturally followed the third generation's steps. Seeing the third generation so serious, Minato's heart skipped a beat, and his intuition told him that something big had happened in the ninja world. Kushina was a little confused. Why did the third generation look at her so strangely just now? A woman's intuition told her that this matter might be related to herself. There might be only one thing that could be related to the ninja world and make the third generation so solemn. Tailed beasts. So she appeared in her heart, jumped onto Kurama's eyelids, opened his eyelids, and asked in confusion, "Kurama, is there something wrong with the tailed beasts?" Kurama, who was sleeping soundly, was speechless after being touched by her. "I just want to sleep in, why do you come to disturb me every now and then?" Kushina. "My fox has become a lazy cat, what should I do? See if you can contact other tailed beasts, I always feel that something big has happened to them. Otherwise, the third generation would not have become so serious." Hearing this, the 9 tails was stunned. Something big has happened to the tailed beasts? It subconsciously opened a chat group. As for Kushina's personality, it knew that this person would not lie, especially using tailed beasts to lie. Moreover, a big change is about to begin. Although they, the tailed beasts, want to stay out of it, it is obvious that things will not be as simple as they think. Otherwise, it will not be a big change that changes the world pattern. After all, in the original change, they, the tailed beasts, went from being free and easy to being the possession of the Jinchuriki. This time may also have something to do with them. In a short while, Kushina noticed that Kurama's expression became very interesting. He even cursed. "Fuck, who the hell did this? I just took a nap, but when I woke up, the world changed." Because in the exclusive chat group for tailed beasts, the other 7 tailed beasts told it that they were sealed in the golem by the masked woman of the reincarnation I. Soon, Kurama looked at Kushina seriously and said solemnly, "The great change in the world has begun." Chapter 714. Half an hour later, the Konoha high-level officials hurriedly left Orochimaru's home and took away Kushina, Minato, and the Waiki. Then there were the 2 captains and vice-captains of the Anbu. Orochimaru naturally noticed the changes in the expressions of the high-level officials, which made his originally good mood become a little worse. Why are there so many big things happening in the ninja world every day? And what is the reason this time? Did other countries in the ninja world join forces to attack Konoha again? Not long after, the corpse of the future was taken back home by Dezhuang and his wife. The soul sealed in his body was resurrected in this world by Orochimaru using the immortal reincarnation technique. The sacrifice used was the same as his own in the other world, the spores of white Zetsu. Although the Uchiha people frowned a little when Orochimaru used this trick, the person involved and his family didn't say much, so they kept silent. The first thing that Wei Lai did when he was resurrected was to hug Ling Hua and hold her tightly. He didn't want to let go for a long time. Tears of excitement flowed from his eyes. The people gathered in the room saw this scene and left very tactfully. That's right, Mieko felt a little jealous. Her own cub, the first thing he did when he woke up was not to look for her. Humph. Little conscienceless. I won't care about him anymore, he can go wherever he wants. I have Hong Hong as my little cotton-padded jacket, which is enough. Soon, only Wei Lai and Ling Hua were left in the room. The latter was extremely excited, and the coldness on her face had melted away when she saw Wei Lai. Now that Wei Lai hugged her closely, she couldn't help but collapse. Her breathing and heartbeat were all disordered. For a moment, she couldn't help herself, subconsciously closed her eyes, pouted, and faced the future. Instinctively wanted to ask for something. It's a pity that the future hastily restrained the action of mouth to mouth because her body is the dirty world. After all, no matter what she said, she was just a dead person. If he had to have a little mouth to mouth with Ling Hua, he would feel uncomfortable. After all, with a corpse. Hiss. Can't think about it. Too perverted. Evening. At Minato's house. They all knew that the future took Ling Hua to the river to talk to each other. So the two of them knew not to disturb them. And they all have something on their minds now. Being able to capture seven-tailed beasts in an instant is not something that ordinary people can do. In their cognition, only Hyagaran and Uchiha Madara can do it. The former is a person with the reincarnation eye, and they have all heard about it from Ling Hua. The latter is someone who can torture Mirai. They are a little unsure when facing one of these two people. Judging from the fact that the seven-tailed beasts were captured in an instant, they are coming for the tailed beasts. The purpose is the infinite moon reading plan mentioned by Mirai. Kushina looked at Minato's worried look, and after thinking about it, she smiled and walked to Minato's side, whispered in his ear, "Shui Shui, Mikoto, and I bought a set of underwear yesterday, do you want to see it?" The voice was very soft, but the tone was very tempting, and the hot air exhaled made Minato's ears numb. His whole body was shaken, his breathing was rapid, his heartbeat accelerated, and his mind was even more turbulent, and he stood up. If I remember correctly, he had secretly seen that it was a black bikini. Hiss, seeing Minato like this, Kushina smiled gently, stood up, glanced at Minato with seductive eyes, and walked towards the bedroom. Just as Minato was waiting excitedly, the bedroom door opened immediately. Then a girl with orange-red animal ears appeared directly in front of Minato. Click to see the picture. Minato. You use this to test the cotters. It's all hairy, how can I eat it? Underground of the Rain Country. The masked woman looked at the three people in front of her. At this moment, their eyes were dull and they stood there in a daze, like puppets. One of them had purple circles in his eyes. On the left of the masked woman was black and white Zetsu, and on the right was a hunchbacked man. Behind him was no longer a dead tree, but a huge human-shaped demon image. Its wrists were locked with a chain, and 8 of the 9 eyes on its face were already open. It was rumored that the masked woman caught 7-tailed beasts in one day, but that was not entirely true. She caught 8. But who would have thought that when she had just sealed half of the 8 tails when the cow demon turned into an octopus leg? In other words, she was tricked. The 8-tail used the tail-breaking method to escape, and it was hidden from her reincarnation eye. But it doesn't matter, as long as the golem opens its eyes. Behind the 3 people, there are 7 expressionless people lined up in a row. They all have cracks on their bodies and are full of the breath of the dirty world. The masked woman propped her chin with one hand and leaned on the stone chair. The second generation's reincarnation is really useful. So what, it's not as good as my puppet eternity. The hunched person made a hoarse voice. As he said, he looked to his side. There were also 7 people there. But there was no breath of life on them. Human puppets, that's a bit creative. White Zetsu complained in his heart, these human pillars are really pitiful. They have never lived an ordinary life since childhood and have been despised by others. Now they are being extracted from the tailed beasts and die. That's fine, but even their bodies have been made into human puppets, and their souls have been used as filthy earth puppets. Black Zetsu smiled and said, we don't need to care about these. How are you collecting the flesh and blood of the strong people in the ninja world that she asked you to collect? Except for Hashirama Senju and Mito Uzumaki of Konoha, I have collected all the strong people in other villages who have not been cremated. Very good, find an opportunity to give it to her. The next 8-tail and 9-tail will not be so easy to catch, especially the 9-tail. At the end, he was also drunk. Why do you say that there are so many strong people at the level of Hokage in Konoha now? It's really unscientific. Will Madara be resurrected together? White Zetsu asked in his heart. He stole the immortal reincarnation technique, so he naturally knows how to do it. Hearing this, Black Zetsu pondered for a moment. Okay, use your spores and some of Madara's flesh and blood to cultivate a person who is closest to Madara in terms of bloodline in a short period of time. He has already made preparations for improvement before he died. No matter what kind of resurrection technique, it can restore him to his peak. White Zetsu was overjoyed when he heard this. Hehe. That's good, immortal reincarnation is such a cool technique, I have wanted to prepare it for a long time. At this time, the masked woman had finished talking with the person named Scorpion. She looked at the golem behind her, and Herbian saw through it, and saw that there was a tube the size of a human head inserted into the ground at the tail of the golem. In another layer of space under their feet, there were densely packed white eggs. Some of them have already taken shape, and they look very much like White Zetsu. Wait a little longer, in just 1 week, my army of 100,000 White Zetsu will be formed. These eggs are all contained inside the golem, and now they only need chakra to activate and develop. She is not completely sure about Konoha. That's why she plans to stop after catching the 8 tails, with the purpose of using their chakra to enhance her own strength and power. For this reason, she also specially found the puppet master, Scorpion, who plays with the body. She controls the souls of the dead, and Scorpion controls their bodies, which can achieve the best use. Mirai-kun, I will definitely create a world with you, and then I will give birth to 100 babies for you. Thinking about it, she couldn't help but touch her smooth and flat belly, but when she felt some reaction in her lower body, she felt a little tangled in her heart. Should I cut it off or keep it? Or, have both? Like the Futanari in Jiraiya's book. Mirai took Rika back home. His parents, sister, Obito, and Shisui all gathered at his house, waiting for him to come back. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Rope Tree and his sister sitting next to each other. Mirai's originally happy face suddenly became sour. Why are you in my house? Rope Tree was originally very happy, because when Uncle Dazwang saw him holding Hung Hongshand, he would only pout speechlessly and say nothing more. It proved that his efforts were still very effective, and that Mirai was resurrected, although it was the dirty world, but Hong Hong was very happy. He was also happy with it. But after hearing what Mirai said, his face suddenly darkened. If you can't talk, then don't talk. Also, I'm your brother-in-law. Mirai, _. Just as he was about to retort, Hong Hong stood up and interrupted him, saying, Okay, Mirai, sit down quickly. We haven't been together for a long time. Hearing this, Mirai immediately responded with a smile, saying that he hadn't seen his sister for a long time and missed her so much. Then he took Linghua's hand and sat down. In Orochimaru's mansion. Only Orochimaru was left. He looked at the bright moon in the sky with a frown on his face. He already knew about the tailed beasts, but he didn't expect that such a big thing would happen. Now the 4th generation AI of the Land of Lightning is on his way to Konoha with B, and they plan to seek Konoha's protection. After all, Konoha's strength is obvious to all, and it is really outrageous. There is no telling how many cage-level combat forces there are. Although they have had gaps, as long as they can save the tailed beasts and Killer Bee, no matter how much they pay, it is worth it. Because they have already lost the 2-tailed Nikomata. They can't lose Killer Bee, the perfect Jinchuriki. It seems that a huge crisis has loomed over Konoha. Then the Bloodstain Net plan must be advanced. Originally, the Golden Sun eclipse had just passed, and the next time would have to wait until 3 years later. But the last time he went to other worlds, Orochimaru had a good idea. There was no time in his own world, so how about going to other worlds? And he could take Kushina with him to avoid the enemy. Take the future with you and revive him. Also, using the dragon veins and grayer ore from another world, the resources of the 2 worlds are enough for him to use. In another world, Naruto and Sasuke died in battle one after another. Just when Sakura was about to use the power of Tenshugeya to revive them, she was stopped by Tenshugeya. In the consciousness space, the white-haired old man was about to introduce himself. He was interrupted by Sasuke. I heard you want to hang me, right? I'm ready, give it to me. 6-Path Sage. Now, do Uchiha just reach out for it? In Naruto's consciousness space. Grandpa, I know you killed your mother, but the situation is urgent now. We must stop Madara and Black Zetsu to prevent your mother from being born. So, give it to me. Six Path Sage, Sigma, Degree. Good guy, this reincarnation of Ashura is even more impolite, and he curses people with your mother as soon as he opens his mouth. Did I find the wrong reincarnation? Also, how did they know about my mother? Chapter 715. The next day, Orochimaru took Mirai and Kushina and left Konoha secretly. Through the underworld that Mirai split, they went to another world. Mirai thought she could return to the previous world, the world summoned by Orochimaru. Naruto's main world. But when they appeared in the new world, they were stunned. This world was not what they thought. Although it was also the world of Naruto, this world was the world during Minato's reign, and there was no Mirai, no Rika, and no rope tree. Kushina married Minato, and gave birth in the next few days. For this reason, Mirai told Orochimaru and Theodoros about what might happen. Kushina immediately planned to wait here, she wanted to see herself and Minato in another world. At Dazwang's house, Mieko and the other 5 were sitting in the living room. In addition to Uchiha Hong and the other 3, there were Rope Tree and Rika. There were 2 eyeballs in front of them. Ling Hua said, Teacher Orochimaru told me that although immortal reincarnation can pull the dead back to the real world, the impure world reincarnation has all the abilities it had before. These abilities are all derived from the soul body and the power of flesh and blood. If the dead are to be truly resurrected, then the power of the impure world dead, such as Sharingan, will disappear from the resurrected person as long as it is not in the original body. I have heard about this too. Dazwang nodded, he looked at Hong Hong, and said, Your brother's personality is obviously not very interested in the Manjiki. We have all been injected with the wood release cell fluid, which can already restore the burden and damage caused by the Manjiki. However, the Manjiki level eyes are obviously not as good as the eternal eyes. Hong Hong, you should absorb these eyes. After saying this, the 3 people in the field looked at Uchiha Hong. Rope Tree also agreed, Yes, Hong Hong, before leaving with Orochimaru in the future, he asked me to persuade you to absorb these eyes. Hong Hong knew all this, she shook her head on the spot and said, No, I don't need these eyes, A&D. She had already made a decision about her brother's eyes. It is undeniable that the temptation of the eternal eye is indeed great, but she doesn't take it seriously. As she became more and more proficient in the power of wood release, she found that her pupil power was no longer the same as before. Even the complete form Susanoo recorded in the clan can be opened for 7 or 8 minutes. It can be restored afterwards. In this case, the eternal eye has almost no attraction to her. After seeing his daughter say this, Dazwang and the others looked at each other and stopped persuading her. After Mieko put away her eyes, she began to pull the 2 girls and talked about other happy things. Dazwang, on the other hand, pulled Rope Tree to the backyard to practice. Early in the morning of the 3rd day, Konoha village convened the 3rd 5-cage talks. The second time, Konoha was the victorious country and accepted the surrender of the 4 major countries. And this time, they were all for the matter of the tailed beasts. From the major countries, the people of Konoha learned that the tailed beasts were captured by force in their respective villages. The 3rd Raikage looked very uncomfortable. At present, the 2 points I know are that the person is a girl who just turned 18. As he said, he glanced at Konoha vaguely. Because Konoha is rich in monsters. Since there are already 7, there is no guarantee that there will not be an 8th. Also, the feeling that person gave me is very similar to that of Hyagarika, who is known as the Konoha heavenly punishment in your village. That's right. Me too. The 2 countries of Fudo immediately agreed. And in the direction of the land of water, there sat a beautiful woman whose figure was second only to Tsunade. She was the newly appointed 5th Mizukage of the Hidden Mist village, Mei Terumi. She didn't speak, because she knew that the main reason she became the Mizukage was that the strong men in the village were all scared by Konoha. So she, a beautiful woman with double bloodstains, was hastily arranged to become the 5th generation. Of course, this was also the result of the support of her family behind her. After all, although the 5th generation Mizukage was a shield, he was still a Mizukage after all, and his power in the land of water was only under the daimyo. The Takigakuer, whose tailed beasts were also captured, was not qualified to attend this meeting. The 3rd Hokage glanced at him indifferently and snorted coldly, the tailed beasts in your village were all distributed by our Konoha. And with the strength of our Konoha, why do we have to be sneaky to recover the tailed beasts? Wouldn't it be better to let Minato and others go to the door to ask for it? Fourth cage. For a moment, the 4 cages were speechless. Because Konoha does have this strength. Besides, after the third Hokage finished his retort, he looked at the Mizu cage and said while smoking, if our people really wanted the tailed beasts, why would they return the 3-tailed beast to the Mist Village? After being mentioned by the third Hokage, Mai Terumi could no longer be treated as an invisible person. She looked around, nodded, and said in a deep voice, indeed, although we, the Mist Ninja, spent 120 million taels to redeem the 3-tailed beast. But in terms of value, this little money cannot be compared with the importance of the tailed beasts. The tailed beasts are at least an important force to deter other countries. For a moment, all the cages and their followers were silent. The third Hokage was telling the truth. If it weren't for this, the Cloud Ninja wouldn't have sent Killer Bee to Konoha village for protection. For a moment, the meeting room fell silent. Beside the third Hokage, Jiraiya followed him. When he was serious, he was very serious. He looked around and said seriously, the great toad sage of Myaboku Mountain once predicted that the ninja world was about to undergo a huge change, and if we don't pay attention, it will be destroyed. I have reason to suspect that this may be about to happen. So I propose to form a ninja coalition as soon as possible to deal with the next battle. Hearing this, the 4 cages of water, earth, wind, and thunder looked at each other, and Onoki said, okay, but I have a condition. After defeating the masked woman, I need you to help us take back the 4 tails and the 5 tails. The other cages did not speak, but all looked at the third with the same eyes. After hearing this, the latter nodded after thinking about it. There is no problem with this. After all, the mutual restraint system left by the first still has hope for peace. In this way, the meeting ended quickly, and the 4 major countries began to mobilize ninjas. Soon, 6 days passed in everyone's anxious minds. When the dawn of the 7th day just rose. Outside Konoha village. Suddenly, a white humanoid creature emerged from the ground outside the barrier, causing Konoha, which had already raised the first level of alert, to respond immediately. For a while, all the Konoha ninjas who were summoned back to the village went outside the village to meet the enemy. In the Hokage's office, the third looked out the window with a solemn expression. From his direction, he could see explosions from time to time 5 kilometers away. Sure enough, they have accumulated enough strength and started to attack Konoha. As he spoke, he looked at the 2 people behind him, Noeki and Minato. Asked, Minato, how is Killer Bee now? He has been arranged to go inside the Hokage Rock, where he is absolutely safe. Minato said firmly. This made the 3rd generation relax a little. That's good. As he spoke, he looked outside the village, with a hint of coldness in his eyes. Minato, Noeki, you also go to fight the enemy, I'm here, as long as you are fine, I won't move easily. Hearing this, the 2 immediately responded, yes. As he said that, he disappeared. In Konoha, Danzo, Hitaki Sakumo, and the 3rd Hokage remained motionless. The 3 of them formed the last bastion of Konoha. In addition to protecting Killer Bee, they also served as the central commander. In front of the main gate of Konoha, Minato and Noeki appeared here together. The latter narrowed his eyes. Compared with before, he was a little more calm. This time, he didn't fight first and think later like he did when he was young. I didn't expect the enemy to have the immortal reincarnation technique. It seems that either there is a traitor in our village, or someone has sneaked in without anyone noticing. Minato also looked at the impure world warriors fighting wantonly on the front line, with a gleam in his eyes. I think someone should have sneaked in. Do you still remember the white Zetsu mentioned in the future? It is said that he has a ephemeral technique that can easily blend into nature. Perhaps it was him who secretly sneaked into Orochimaru's laboratory and learned this technique. They all knew who had captured the tailed beast. It was definitely Madara's spokesperson, the one called Hyagaran. At this time, the Uchiha Hong family also gathered around them. Well, the analysis is good, but we must stop them. Dezhuang nodded, and then said, after all, we can't hand over Kushina. The whole family knew the identity of the tailed beast. But they never told outsiders. Okay. Hong Hong said, and naturally walked to the side of Nawais, smiling, then I will be in a group with Nawais, he will be responsible for destroying the enemy, and I will be responsible for sealing. Now she has regained her previous warm and protective sister's character. This made De Zhuang's face darken. Damn it, the little cotton-padded jacket ran away. Minato said, well, I'll go find the caster and then deal with him. To deal with the immortal reincarnation technique, in addition to the sealing technique, there is also the search for the caster and let him remove the technique. The latter is more convenient, but it is much more troublesome. Wait. Just as Minato was about to leave, a voice interrupted Minato. A few people looked back curiously and found that it was Uchiha Fugaku. He took a few jumps and came to Minato's side, and said solemnly, I'll go with you, my Sharingan should be able to help. After thinking about it, Minato also felt that it made sense, so he nodded, okay, then I'll leave it to you later. With that, the two disappeared. Yoshi. Rope Tree chuckled, clapped his hands, and shouted, Ixo. Wood Release, Great Tree World Advent Technique. This is an upgraded version of the Wood World Advent Technique, a technique developed by Rope Tree that can release a terrifying dense forest over a large area. Chapter 716. When they came back from the other world in the future, they found something strange in the village. Without saying anything, they rushed to the Hokage's office. Teacher, what happened? Orochimaru asked in a deep voice as soon as he came in. He naturally sensed the situation outside the village. But what surprised him was why there were so many strong filthy earth masters on the enemy side. And the accuracy of immortal reincarnation was quite high, and it was obvious that he used the technique he had improved. When the third generation saw Orochimaru, he was immediately happy. You are back. 3 powerful fighters have returned, and Konoha is safe. And the feeling Orochimaru gave him was completely different. Before, he could feel that he was like a cold and venomous snake, but only when he was in the future, he would become a lazy and non-threatening rat snake. But this time, he felt nothing, as if he was natural. Sir, where did Minato and the others go? Kushina asked. She was not on the battlefield and could not find Minato's scent. Hearing this, the Sanda explained, the Anbu people said that he went to the enemy's rear to find the traces of the impure world spellcaster. Hearing that Minato had gone deep into the enemy, Kushina could not help but worry. No, it's too dangerous for him to be alone. I want to find him. Seeing Kushina was about to leave, the Sanda hurriedly stopped her and said anxiously, no, you can only move around with Mirai and the others. He knew Kushina's temper. If she was allowed to hide, this girl would pull her beard and call her an old thing. So she could only move around on the battlefield close to her side. With Mirai and the others around, Kushina will surely be fine. Danzo on the side was about to say something, but was stopped by the Sanda with his eyes. He opened his mouth, but when he thought of the Sanda's face, he didn't say anything in the end. Kushina was a little dissatisfied, and just as she was about to say something, Mirai spoke in advance, okay, we are here, and we promise that nothing will happen to Kushina. As he said that, he hurriedly pulled Kushina away. He could feel that Linghua was fighting alone outside the gate of Konoha. When they both ran out of the Hokage's office building, Kushina was a little puzzled. Mirai, why did you agree to the third generation? Although Minato has Flying Thunder God, the person opposite is someone who has mastered the reincarnation I, and it may even be Uchiha Madara. Minato is very dangerous. So I have to go to him. Mirai smiled and said, the third generation said that he would let you move under our noses, but if we also go deep behind the enemy, then you will. Hearing this, Kushina's eyes suddenly lit up. Oh my god, I didn't even think of this. She couldn't help but give Mirai a thumbs up. Mirai, your brain is still so good. Hee. Let's go. Mirai said, and the two of them accelerated and quickly arrived at the outskirts of Konoha. Sandai. Fuck. Why didn't I think of this? On the battlefield. Jiraiya looked at the 3 people in front of him anxiously. While resisting the attacks of the 3 people, he shouted anxiously, Konan, Yahiko, Nagato, wake up, I am your Jiraiya teacher. But it was Konan who responded Shikigamai Shinbu Jutsu. Tsunade on the side saw this and immediately picked up a large piece of ground and threw it at Konan in the air. Nagato on the side raised his hand with a dull look, and silently shouted at the flying ground, Shinra Tensei. The next moment, the ground was changed in direction by a huge repulsive force. Just when Jiraiya was extremely anxious, a voice came over. Jiraiya-sama, they are under the puppet control technique of the reincarnation I. You can't wake them up with words alone. After the words fell, a beautiful girl rushed in front of them. Raising her hand, she shot out an empty palm, knocking away Conan's attack. This made Tsunade, who was preparing to dodge with Jiraiya, slightly relieved. Did you solve it over there? Rika smiled and said, it's simple. Tsunade then took the time to look back and found that the 10 immortal reincarnation masters who were fighting with Rika were all covered with seal patterns. Nailed them to the spot, unable to move at all. This surprised Tsunade. Some of those impure world ninjas were well known and powerful, such as Qing Ming, the founder of the country of craftsmen, the other side who controlled the monsters, Beiju, the rebel ninja of the Sand Ninja, the third generation of Kazekage, the second generation of Mizukage, the Tsuchikage, and the explosion ninjas, such as Kari, Nijao, and Toranishuk. Each of them was a difficult existence, even her it would be a bit difficult to deal with them without using the 100 healings. But now, only more than 10 minutes later, they were all easily subdued by Ling Hua. Ling Hua looked at the 3 familiar people, and bursts of blue light flashed in her eyes. Then her arm turned emerald green, like an energy arm. The next second, she flashed in front of Nagato, your ability of reincarnation I is the most difficult, so let's deal with you first. As she said that, she punched Nagato's stomach. Miraculously, her hand penetrated Nagato's body without any hindrance. The latter was stunned on the spot. As Ling Hua withdrew her hand, a light blue ball of light appeared in her hand. When the ball of light left, Nagato's originally lifeless eyes finally recovered. He looked around in astonishment. A face full of confusion. Why am I here? Wasn't he fighting with that masked woman? Ling Hua did not answer, but took out the balls in Yahiko and Conan's bodies in the same way, and released the control of the reincarnation eye on them. At this moment, in her perception, a familiar chakra fluctuation came, and her eyes suddenly lit up, and she couldn't help looking back. Found that Mirai and Kushina were here. Without saying a word, she abandoned Jiraiya and the others and flew to Mirai. To be honest, if she didn't need to stay to protect Konoha, she really wanted to go to the other world with Mirai. You're finally back, I missed you so much. As she said that, she suddenly frowned, why are you still in the body of the filthy world? Didn't Orochimaru say that he would revive Mirai? But Wai Wei smiled, hugged her slender waist, slowly landed on the ground, and explained, the resurrection technique of Rinnegan requires the life of the practitioner, and Dragon Tongue reincarnation requires mouth-to-mouth contact with people. I have a misophobia, so I don't agree. As he said this, he noticed the smile disappearing from Ling Hua's face, and immediately continued, but I have the resurrection technique, but it requires a lot of chakra from the knife holder. After that, Wai Wei took out the blood-drinking knife. This knife has the ability to kill the messenger of the underworld, allowing the newly dead body to recover from injuries, and allowing the soul that has just left the body to return to the original body, thereby achieving resurrection. Hey, wait, why are you stealing my knife? Ling Hua grabbed the blood-drinking knife without saying a word, and chopped it directly at Wai Wei's impure body. Wai Wei was so scared that he quickly dodged. Fuck. You want to murder me? Ling Hua, _. This time it was Ling Hua's turn to be puzzled. Didn't they say that this knife has the ability to revive? Why are you hiding? You know, she has been lonely and cold all these years, and she can't wait to be with Wei Lai Lulu. Wei Lai looked at Ling Hua speechlessly. He knew that the girl was anxious, but this was too anxious. He explained helplessly, this knife is not only for creatures in the world, but also for creatures in other worlds. It has a strong ability to kill. If I get hit by this knife, I will be half dead if I don't die. Hearing this, Ling Hua was immediately frightened. She looked at the knife in her hand with horror. Does it mean that she almost sent Wei Lai to see the Buddha just now? Wei Lai took the blood drink and smiled and said, besides, it is very simple to revive myself, but I need to use the dirty earth body to confirm one thing. That's why he will always stay in the dirty earth state. Suddenly, at this moment, a violent chakra fluctuation came from a distance. Seeing this, Wei Lai's face suddenly changed. Not good. Rika was also shocked, is this Uchiha Madara? Well, Minato and the others have met Uchiha Madara, let's go over there. As he said this, he told the 5 people he was hugging behind him, Uncle, Sister Tsunade, this place is up to you, we are needed there. Well, go ahead, with us here, this place will not fall. As soon as Tsunade finished speaking, Rika took the future and flew quickly towards the Valley of the End. That's right, Madara was there, and Black and White Zetsu, and Hyagaran were also there. At this moment, Minato and Fugaku were surrounded by 7 human puppets and 7 bodies of the impure world reincarnation. This made Fugaku's face become quite interesting. These are all Jinkraki from each village, how could they? Minato looked at the 3 people standing on the top of the cliff, and his face became very heavy. He finally understood why the future chose to die together. The aura of Uchiha Madara is really too terrifying. On the waterfall, Uchiha Madara frowned and looked at his arm, his brows furrowed. Immortal reincarnation. Black Zetsu, why is it not as planned? Reincarnation technique. Black Zetsu on the side hurriedly explained, Master Madara, Uchiha Mirai has been resurrected. Hearing this, Madara was immediately diverted. I didn't expect that he also left that space. Very good, this time I want to see how you will die with me. The masked woman not far from them looked very ugly. She didn't expect that Uchiha Madara was actually reincarnated by White Zetsu. What the hell? At this moment, a 40-meter-long machete broke through the air and chopped towards them. Master Madara, come and fight. Uchiha Madara did not dodge, his eyes were full of excitement. I don't know how long it has been, but your strength has improved a lot compared to last time, enough to please me. Ha ha ha. My dear grandson. As he spoke, his whole body was covered with blue skeletons. Hearing this voice, Hyagaran was shocked and looked towards the horizon. There was a man with high spirits, rushing towards this side. Uchiha Mirai. The masked woman couldn't help but become shy when she saw his heroic figure. In her mind, there were countless scenes of her being intimate with him, especially when he was always behind her and supported her countless times. When she thought of this, she felt her scalp tingling and her whole body was almost unstable. Scorpion. He looked at the shy person beside him speechlessly. Why are you being naughty again? It's none of your business. Chapter 717. Rika faced Hinata Ran, and Mirai faced Madara. Minato dealt with Scorpion. As for Fugaku, he stared at Black and White Zetsu. Lakeside. Mirai looked at Madara, who had a 1.5-meter-long Tessaigan in his hand. Madara, how did you get out of that place? Madara smiled and said nothing. My good grandson, come and fight. He said, clapping his hands and shouting loudly, would release, Tree World Advent. In an instant, the entire lake surface surged rapidly, and countless violent chakras were injected from Madara into the lake surface under his feet. Mirai saw this scene and raised his eyebrows. Has the current wood release developed to the point where you can clap your hands and shout whatever you want? Wind wound. For trees that can grow, of course, it is best to cut them with wind release. Unfortunately, his use of wood release was not as good as Madara's, otherwise, he would have clapped his hands and shouted whatever he wanted. Madara's technique had a large range, and it forced everyone to move away from their original positions. Linghua looked at Hyagaran, feeling a little complicated. Just ask your nominal fiancé, who suddenly became a girl and fell in love with the man you like, is there anything more bloody and poisonous than this? There isn't any. Hyagaran, you are doomed to lose today. Hyagaran would pay attention to Mirai from time to time, hoping that the man would look at her. Unfortunately, the man not only didn't look at her, but looked at Linghua frequently. He may have to deal with Madara's attack, so he didn't have time to look at me. She comforted herself like this. Then she took off the mask and looked at Linghua coldly. She thought she was becoming more and more lovely, beautiful and attractive. But compared to the woman in front of her, she felt that she was lacking something. Hinata Reka. She looked at her with gritted teeth. It was this woman who stole the person she loved, so she was redundant in the world she created. She was redundant now, and she had to be killed. Then Uchiha might notice her in the future. Thinking of this, she suddenly felt murderous. Nishin. Reincarnation I Chakra Mode. After a few rounds, Hinata Ran had already activated the strongest means. A new round of attack on Hinata Reka began. The battle had just begun, and the support from the major ninja villages had arrived one after another. Originally, they were expected to arrive in Konoha today. Unexpectedly, as soon as they arrived, they saw the scene of Konoha being attacked. In the past, they might have stood aside and waited for them to lose both. But now, they have Konoha to ask for help, and they also hope to take back the tailed beast of their village with the help of Konoha. Without the tailed beasts, they would really be dead in name only. After all, the damage of the Third War was the most tragic war in history for them. Without Konoha, they might not exist. With the addition of new forces, Konoha is much more relaxed. Although the strength of these White Zetsu armies is not very good, they are very unique. If they can't beat them, they will merge. The strength will also be improved accordingly. The battle between Mirai and Madara is still going on. But Mirai intends to lead Madara away. Although this place is far enough from Konoha, it is too easy for them to affect Konoha at this level. Now, they have left the Valley of the End and are fighting towards a more distant no man's land. Madara doesn't care about this. In his eyes, besides Hashirama, there is only this grandson in front of him. He was taken to a different space by him last time and almost died. This time, the young man seemed to have made a lot of progress and was able to fight on par with himself. He didn't know how long it had been since he had a good fight. Wood-style wood dragon technique. As he shouted, 3 wooden dragons with a diameter of 10 meters and a length of 200 meters rushed towards the future. This is a technique that can mimic the shape of things, and all wooden dragons can generate suction. As long as they are bound by it, even the tailed beasts will be quickly drained of chakra. The future narrowed his eyes and saw the huge amount of water in the wooden dragon's body. So much water, is it to prevent fire style? Wood style is really a rip-off. Although fire overcomes wood, if the wood is full of water, no matter how big the fire is, it will be useless. Unless the temperature of the fire is tens of thousands of degrees, it can evaporate the water in the tree in an instant and burn the tree. The problem is that the fire style of the future does not have such a strong temperature. Even the thunder and fire sky charge can only destroy a wooden dragon. But don't forget, he is now a filthy earth body, and his chakra supply is almost unlimited. And he can avoid the side effects of many techniques. Anyway, he has died once. Mada, you broke free from my eye technique last time, let's see if you can break free this time. As he said that, he kicked his right eye and shouted, "Eye technique sword art domain." When Madara came to his senses, he realized that he was in a world of swords again. The surrounding environment was exactly the same as last time, but there were great differences. In this sword field, not only the range has become larger, but also the spatial strength has increased a lot. In other words, he can't easily break free from the eye technique of the future like last time. Sword Art Online, I see. Last time he used the normal form of the Mangeki to perform this eye technique, it was too much of a burden on his body, so he could only use part of the power of his right eye. But this time he is a filthy earth body, without the shackles on his body, so he can perform the complete eye technique. Thinking of this, Madara-sama looked at the densely packed swords rising into the air, and then formed a torrent rushing towards him. His face was not surprised but happy. He shouted excitedly, "Good! Very good! That's right, Uchiha Mirai, dance to your heart's content." Susanoo. As he finished speaking, a naked blue giant with a skeleton without any clothes appeared out of thin air. He clenched his fists and blasted at the sword streams around him. "Aura aura aura!" Mirai looked at Madara's excited voice echoing between heaven and earth, and he couldn't help but get excited. Susanoo. He also summoned the Uchiha god of destruction. In an instant, a black naked giant almost as tall as Madara's blue Susanoo also appeared in the world of eye techniques. He punched Madara. Seeing this scene, Madara's eyes sparkled. "That's right, that's it. Let's dance together." As he said, he turned around and punched the future's Susanoo fist. Seeing this scene, the future immediately increased his pupil power and hardened the Susanoo fist countless times. He was far less proficient in Susanoo than Madara, so he was a little weak. Facts have proved that what he did was right. The strengthened black fist barely blocked Madara's translucent blue fist. Seeing this scene, the future breathed a sigh of relief. In this case, there is a fight. "Come again!" Madara shouted, and manipulated another fist to swing. Hit the heart of the future Susanoo. In this state, the magicians like Mirai are almost all on Susanoo's chest. Only when they are in their perfect form will they be transferred to the crystal between Susanoo's eyebrows and protected. "I'm not afraid of you." After saying that, Mirai also raised another hardened black hand and punched at Madara's fist again. Collision, withdrawal, and punch again. For a time, the whole Sword Art Online was filled with the sound of fists colliding. There were also the excited voices of passionate men. "Muda muda muda. Ola ola ola." Outside. Hyagaran has been subdued by Hyagarika. She directly dug out the opponent's eyeballs, making him lose his absolute source of power, and then applied another layer of sealing technique to completely trap the opponent. Hyagarant's face showed despair for a moment. Why? Why did she still lose? Obviously, I worked so hard and got most of the power from the box of bliss, why can't I beat her? This is unscientific. Unfortunately, her mouth was also sealed, so she couldn't make a sound. Minato's battle was almost over. He had Flying Thunder God for speed, sealing technique for support, and Raise Nan for attack. The combination of these three made it easy for him to seal all 7 impure world Jinchuriki. Even if they all turned on state 2, it was useless. As for Scorpion's human puppet, he was directly destroyed by one ball after another. He looked at the human puppet that Scorpion took out last, and his face changed. 3rd generation Kazekage. So that's it, the disappearance of the 3rd generation Kazekage was indeed caused by you. Scorpion's face was quite ugly at the moment. His own collection was actually destroyed by the man in front of him single-handedly. Konoha is really perverted. So what? Since you've damaged so many of my puppets, use yourself to compensate me. Sand Iron Attack. As soon as he finished speaking, a huge cone appeared above Minato's head, about to fall heavily. At this moment, a red-haired figure rushed in from a distance. Come. Take my punch. Just after she finished speaking, she punched the sand iron on Minato's head. The huge force directly flew it away. As the figure landed, she looked directly at Ling Hua not far away, with a face full of resentment. You clearly agreed to monitor me, but you took the future and ran away first. Hua, you are so unfair. It made her run all the way on the ground, and it was not easy for her to get here now. Hua, do you only have the future in your eyes? Hinata Ling Hua, oh, / Q. She blushed immediately. It seems that she did something unkind. But the next second, she stiffened her neck and defended, I don't know, it's all the future's fault. He didn't tell me. That's right, it's all the future's fault. Kushina, .. At this moment, Scorpion's expression was very interesting. Where the hell did this super powerful woman come from? Chapter 718. The 4 cages did not come. They all stayed in their own villages. After all, most of the troops had been withdrawn from their villages. If they left, they would leave. Once something happened, it would be devastating. After all, there are many small ninja villages that covet the status of the 5 major villages. Even many small ninja villages have hatred for the 5 major villages, and it is hard to guarantee that they will not take advantage of the chaos to attack. Revenge at will. For example, Takigakuer and Raingakuer. Jiraiya and Tsunade teamed up to fight a white figure with a whirlpool face. For some reason, this person has a very strong wood release aura, and each wood release technique is extremely terrifying. There is even a reincarnation eye aura, which controls repulsion and gravity, making them both feel troubled. Obito, Kakashi, Rin, and Shisui tried their best to clean up the people around them. But Lin was puzzled as she saw Obito looking at Shisui with hatred from time to time and blushing from time to time. Finally, she couldn't help asking, Obito, what's wrong with you? Obito was angry because his first kiss was taken away by Shisui, and he was still thinking about how to take revenge on Shisui. He was awakened by Lin's words, which frightened him so much that his face turned red and his heart beat fast. Nothing. He turned his head away unnaturally, not daring to look at Lin. Because as long as he thought about giving his first kiss to Shisui, he felt that he had betrayed Lin. He was not clean. He felt very uncomfortable. But you have to say, Lin was really beautiful at that time. If there were 2 Lins, wouldn't he be twice as happy? Shisui, who was chopping off white Zetsu with a knife, suddenly shuddered all over. He looked around in astonishment. He was in doubt. Someone wants to harm me. He looked around hurriedly. Most of the people around him were Konoha ninjas who had just graduated from the same period, such as the hero's son Might Guy, the young ninja Ebisu, and Orochimaru's 3rd apprentice Red Bean. Everyone was concentrating on dealing with the people in front of them, and no one relaxed. It's strange, who wants to harm me? In this battle, only black and white Zetsu fought more easily. Because Fugaku did not use the Manjiki. It's not that he didn't want to use it, but he didn't dare to use it. In addition to wanting to maintain the balance of the village, he was also afraid that he would go blind. Black Zetsu took the time to look around, and his face became more and more ugly. He didn't expect that he had worked so hard to increase his power and strength, but he still couldn't beat Konoha. No, we must make Madara the 10 Tails Jinchuriki. Thinking of this, he asked in his heart, White Zetsu, did your spore clone succeed? Don't worry, the 6 Paths Noble Phantasm is already in hand, and they are on their way. Hearing this, Black Zetsu breathed a sigh of relief. Well, you deal with him, I will control Nagato, let him perform the reincarnation eye sealing technique, and inject the last 9 tails chakra into the body of the golem. He had already planted an imperceptible seed in Nagato's body, which could be activated at the critical moment, so that he could become his puppet and execute the last 2 steps of the plan. Okay, go ahead. Mirai and Madara had already escaped from the eye technique space. The latter did not expect that Mirai's eye technique would become so strong. He almost consumed 80% of his eye power just to escape from the eye technique. It is hard to imagine that he has just turned 18 years old. This is really a monster. He glanced around, and it can be said that their own combat power was almost wiped out. Mainly because Uchiha drove 3 Susanos, Senjuro Tree's Wooden Man, and elite ninjas from various countries. Facing them, the advantage of numbers will no longer be apparent. This made their ordinary white Zetsu almost killed instantly. As for the impure world army, forget about it, it has been sealed to the point that only 1 in 10 survived. There was even a large-scale recognition of relatives on the scene. Many impure world ninjas were quickly sealed when they were deliberately let go. They couldn't be brought back even if they were scratched. This was not a solution, so he said in his heart, Black Zetsu, let me revive. As long as he was resurrected, his strength would be restored to its peak. Enough to suppress the scene. Black Zetsu, who was about to leave the body of White Zetsu, was suddenly shocked, and he looked in the direction of Madara. He received the message from Madara and couldn't help but narrow his eyes slightly. Sealing that part of the 9 tails chakra in an instant might cost Nagato half his life, but for Madara, it was just a matter of raising his hand. He immediately responded in his heart, okay, Madara-sama. After saying that, he immediately separated from White Zetsu, but the black part of his body still remained. To outsiders, there was nothing unusual. Madara looked at the future, his eyes couldn't help but be dazed for a moment. Uchiha Mirai, you are very strong, you really deserve to be my grandson. Really like him. After Hashirama got married, he got drunk and had sex with a girl who looked very similar to Hashirama, and did something to her. Now he saw some shadows of that girl in Uchiha Mirai. Especially the smooth long hair. It's so similar, like Hashirama, they both used rejoice. Future frowned, he looked at Madara. What do you mean? Madara has mentioned the word grandson more than once. If it was before, he didn't care, but he was mentioned so many times, he obviously noticed something was wrong. Madara retracted his complicated look and looked at the future. Don't you think it's strange that the entire Uchiha, your family can open the Mangeki? Hearing this, the future's expression changed slightly. Indeed, it was too strange. Before, he thought it was his fault that affected his parents, but Madara's words made him a little uncertain again. Rika, Fugaku, and Minato all looked over in surprise. Especially Fugaku, they were also shocked at the time about Uchiha Dazwang, who had 4 Mangekis in his family. Because through the family tree, they could find out that there were no outstanding strong people in Uchiha Dazwang's ancestors. Logically speaking, the bloodline should not be so strong. You mean, your blood is flowing in the body of the future? Rika came to the future and asked in surprise. Madara glanced at the future, then nodded. Admitted, yeah. Everyone. Fuck. Fugaku and Minato quickly came back to their senses. If the future's ancestor is Uchiha Madara, then it makes sense that the future has not practiced the Sharingan much, but can open the eyes quickly. The future is speechless. It turns out that I am really Madara's grandson. Ridiculous. It's really too ridiculous. He thought that it was because of the time traveler that the bloodline seemed different. No. Fugaku quickly came to his senses, and he asked in astonishment, according to the age calculation, and you call the future your grandson, Uncle Dazwang could not be you. Everyone thought of something and hurriedly turned their heads to look at Uchiha Madara. Yes, he is my biological son. Everyone, W, degree O degree, W. Oh my god, I am numb. Who would have thought that Dazwang, such a big and strong man, would be the biological son of the man in front of him? Ridiculous. It's really too ridiculous. Only novels dare to write like this. But just when everyone was about to ask something, bursts of scorching steam suddenly came out of Madara's body. This made Ling Hua's face change drastically. Damn, he's going to be resurrected, stop him. No wonder he said so much, it feels like he was trying to delay time. I was careless. But he was stopped by the future, he smiled and said, don't worry, even if he is resurrected, I have the ability to stop him. Uchiha Madara smiled, grandson, you are still so arrogant. The impure earth body can indeed avoid many side effects of the technique, and it can also allow you to have endless chakra, but it will ultimately limit your full strength. Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by the future. Who said I want to fight you with the impure earth body? After saying that, he opened his mouth and spit out his body. Then he drew out the blood drink. Under the effect of the natural tooth, he saw the little ghosts transformed from the dead air on his body. It was these little ghosts that made his body unable to accept the soul. So he swung it at his body and killed those dead ghosts in an instant. Resurrection, I can do it too. As he said that, he took the initiative to untie the body of the impure world, and when his soul left the body, he was sucked in by the suction from the body. Under Madara's stunned eyes, he heard a violent heartbeat. He was stunned for a moment. That knife, in addition to killing the dead souls, also has the ability to revive the dead? Nonsense. But such a nonsense thing happened clearly in front of him. Future only felt that his eyes went black, and then a burning feeling came over him. Then came the violent beating of the heart. Gulp. 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 The long-lost touch appeared on him again. This is the feeling of being alive. For a moment, he couldn't help but let out a wild laugh of Uchiha. Ahahahaha. Minato, Kushina, and Rika all looked at the moving future in surprise. You are finally resurrected. Mirai, welcome back. Ling Hua hugged Walai and gave him a facial cleanser on the spot. Walai, that's great. A black man immediately appeared beside Madara in the distance. He smiled and raised his hand and said, Mada, this is your Rinnegan. At this time, Madara had been resurrected. He also heard a violent heartbeat and a boiling blood, but he was not as excited as before. He silently installed the two circle eyes in the empty eye sockets. After a few seconds, he saw the world again. Walai finally pulled it out of Ling Hua's facial cleanser and looked at Ling Hua with some lingering fear. Sometimes, it's not good to be too big, it's easy to suffocate people. Ling Hua only realized something at this moment. She blushed and hurriedly dug out her eyeballs and put them in Walai's eyes. He didn't make a sound during the whole process, quite a tough guy. Well, your eyes are still with your aunt, so use my eyes to fight first. Future was stunned. No, why did you dig out your own eyes? Although she had no eyes, Ling Hua seemed to understand Future's surprise. She smiled, wiped her tears and said, didn't you say you wanted to exchange eyes with me for fun? This time I will satisfy you. As she said that, she used Yin Seal creation and regeneration to create a pair of ordinary Bun. Then she smiled and said, hee hee. Minato, Kushina, and Fugaku on the side were numb when they saw Ling Hua's tricks. How can you do this? Besides, I still have reincarnation eye. Ling Hua said, and handed the azure eyes that she had dug out from Hinata Ran to Future. Ling Hua had finished her words, what else could Future say? He reached out his hand and scratched Ling Hua's nose in a bad mood, pushed her hand back, and said, don't do this again in the future. Yet. Ling Hua smiled and nodded hurriedly. Black Zetsu, who had just returned, had a confused face throughout the whole process. He finally understood why Bai Lan had such an expression. Who wouldn't be confused when seeing Uchiha Mirai and Hyuga Ling Hua's actions? Chapter 719. Mirai and Madara started a new round of battle. But in terms of the result, the two were about the same. The Samsara Eye should be more powerful than this. Madara looked at Mirai with a frown. He had fought with the man on the moon before, and clearly knew how powerful the Samsara Eye was. But Mirai never used the power of the Samsara Eye when fighting him. Was he unable to use it, or was he unwilling to use it? No, he should be adapting to this pair of eyes. Thinking of this, he looked around. The battle between the two of them had already reached the moon. That's right, the two of them fought directly from the ground to the moon. There were panicked moon people everywhere. He turned his head to look at Mirai, his face became uncertain. What was the physical technique you used to lock me just now? He had suffered 2 losses in a row with this move. The first time he was carried into a different space by him, and the second time was this time, when he was carried into the moon. And through the moon's surface, crashed into the moon. Future stood on the other side with a knife, laughed, and said, Uchiha's magic skill, Uchiha hug throw. Hearing this, Madara nodded in agreement, named after my Uchiha, this technique is indeed worthy of it. As Madara was talking, his expression suddenly changed, and he turned his head to look in a certain direction. Madara-sama, the Ten Tails has entered State 2. Black Zetsu's voice came over. Why so fast? Madara was stunned. At most, they had only fought for half an hour. If I remember correctly, when they just left the ground, the golem had only returned to the Ten Tails State 1. That is, it looked like a conch, lying on the ground. When I discovered Lulin, someone from the future world broke in. During your death, I went to another world through the dragon vein and captured the 8 tails and half of the 9 tails. The 10 tails, which was blessed with this part of power, naturally progressed quickly. He made this up. Now that things were getting worse, he put all his hard-earned strength into the 10 tails. With the 8 tails as 1 foot and the 9 tails chakra, the 10 tails would naturally recover quickly. While Minato Namikaze and his friends were running around the world this year, he was not idle. Anyway, he couldn't count on Hyagaran. Keeping her would only help them attract the attention of Minato Namikaze and his friends. Lord Madara, if you want to become the 10 tails Jinchuriki, now is the best chance. Got it. Madara looked at Mirai meaningfully. Then he used a fire style to force Mirai back. He immediately formed seals with both hands. Spiritual summoning technique. As his words fell, a huge, human-shaped monster with 10 tails appeared on the moon. Without saying a word, Madara formed a seal and swallowed the entire 10 tails. The distant future, after being forced back, just watched quietly. The brilliance in his eyes flickered. On the ground. Many people have destroyed the White Zetsu army and the immortal reincarnation masters, sealed them, and sent them away. Even Uzumaki White Zetsu was driven away by Jiraiya and Tsunade, revealing a child about 1 year old inside. Sarutobi, let our root raise this child. Danzo looked eagerly. This child has a strong wood-release aura, obviously a wood-release child created by White Zetsu. If he is raised by himself, he will definitely be an outstanding wood-release ninja. The third generation seemed not to hear it, and handed it directly to Hatake Sakumo. This child is handed over to your Enbu, and he will be called Yamato from now on. I hope that after this battle, the world will be Yamato. Orochimaru looked at the moon quietly. Although it is still morning, you can still see the moon in the sky. Several people gradually gathered around him. Teacher Orochimaru, are you really going to do this? Rope Tree asked hesitantly. Hearing this, Orochimaru smiled and nodded, well, this is Future's suggestion, I believe him. After hearing Future's words, everyone didn't say anything more. If he said it could be done, then it could be done. At this moment, everyone on the ground noticed that the moon in the sky had changed. Look, what is that? Why did the moon turn red? No, that's the pattern of the Sharingan. Could it be that the moon is actually a person's eyeball? Bullshit, such a big moon, how could it be a person's eye, who should this be? Thinking of this, everyone began to panic. Since it is a technique, it is either to save people or to hurt people. From the ominous red color it turned, it is obviously not a good technique. Behind Orochimaru, several people looked at each other, and even Obito felt a little uncomfortable. It always felt like something was going to happen. Get ready, after the last battle, we will implement our plan. Orochimaru exhaled. He also had some yearning for the world described by his apprentice. To be honest, now he has mastered the truth of the ninja world. In his eyes, there is nothing worth pursuing in this world. Okay, I'll go and pick up Uncle Dazwang and the others. Yet. At the same time, the immortals of the 3 holy places also opened their eyes and looked at the moon in the sky. To be honest, if they don't want to, they are fully capable of blocking the moonlight, but they all have a premonition that if they do this, someone will come to the door next. The big toad immortal lowered his eyes and looked in the direction of the Ryokai cave. Do you trust him so much? A wave of thoughts was sent over instantly. The white snake sage transformed into an old lady with bound feet, stood at the entrance of the cave, looked up at the blood-red moon and said, you and I, the 3 old men, have seen it. That world seems pretty good. The slug sage did not answer, and she did not know how to answer, because any creature would be at a loss when facing an unknown world. At this moment, a voice that surprised all three of them joined their chat room. I also think that world is pretty good. People and animals live in harmony, which is much more noble than my expectation of everyone living in harmony. Six Path Sage, why are you here? The Slug Sage asked in surprise. But think about it, the great change has begun again, and the guardian of the ninja world is indeed restless. On the moon. Mirai looked at Madara, who now absorbed the power of the 10 tails and turned into the 6 paths mode. And activated God Tree World Advent, with the moonlight shining on the earth without blind spots, all creatures on the earth were wrapped with tree roots. Including the Otsutsuki clan on the moon. At this moment, Minato and his men all appeared beside Mirai through the teleportation array. Black and White also appeared behind Madara. Madara already knew the reason why these people were not affected by infinite Tsukuyomi. They were protected by layers of Susanoo to avoid falling into illusions. Just like Mirai just now. But he didn't care. How about this world, do you want to join? Madara waved his hand casually, and a light screen appeared in front of everyone, but it was their old acquaintances that were played. Haigaran, yes, without eyes, will still be pulled into the illusion by infinite Tsukuyomi. But in this world, Haigaran is not a hermaphrodite, but a pure girl. And there is a childhood sweetheart named Uchiha Mirai. The two of them were childhood sweethearts, taking turns to drink milk from their mothers. For more novels, 30401, join, https://discord.gg/xxtcast, growing up together, graduating together, doing missions together, then getting married, having children, and finally being buried together. Everyone, ____. They all looked at the future in a very strange way. They didn't expect that the villain girl would actually like the future. The future scratched his head in embarrassment. Fortunately, they didn't know that Haigaran was actually a man, otherwise he would really be embarrassed. But Haigarika on the side glared at the woman in the picture with some anger. He said unhappily. Shameless. After this, the future became even more embarrassed. But at this moment, Black Zetsu, who was standing behind Madara, suddenly took action. His eyes flashed with a gleam, and he was about to pierce Madara's chest with one hand without any warning. There was already ecstasy in his eyes. His plan was finally going to succeed. Ha 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 ha. Mom, love me again. Ga. Laughing, he suddenly froze. Because he felt that his hand had poked nothing. It actually poked nothing. How could it be poked nothing? This is unscientific. Now Madara is not the most high-spirited, but also the most defenseless. And his weakness is his back. Hashirama succeeded twice at the beginning. And how did he know that he was going to take him out? Madara turned around quickly and grabbed Black Zetsu's hand, his eyes cold and cold. Black Zetsu, White Zetsu, you two really lied to me. Madara glanced at the two of them lightly. Black Zetsu suddenly turned his head and looked at Uchiha Mirai. You told him? Tell me, how much do you know? Mirai spread his hands. How about you guess? I guess your mother is a banana peel. Black Zetsu was so angry that he cursed. Uchiha Mirai, I shouldn't have let you grow up. Facing Black Zetsu's angry words, Mirai shrugged and said disdainfully, you can scream, anyway, you won't have the chance to scream again in the future. As he said that, he raised his hand and shot several black sticks. In an instant, Black Zetsu and White Zetsu were nailed in place, unable to move. Then he walked towards Madara and stretched out his hand to ask, look, the facts are just as I said, your so-called peace is just part of his plan, he is just using you to achieve the purpose of collecting chakra from all over the world. He said this to Madara in Sword Art Online. The latter also became extremely vigilant, so he didn't fall into Black Zetsu's heart-wrenching words. Madara turned his head and looked at Mirai. He looked at the mummies wrapped in tree roots again, and his brows couldn't help but frown slightly. It turns out that this technique can also be seen as a peace technique. As long as Kagaya Otsutsuki is not resurrected, the world he creates for everyone in the world will be a good peaceful world. It is much better than the world today, at least there is no hatred. At this moment, another change occurred. Countless chakras gathered together crazily. And the core location is Madara. This scared the future. But Madara's expression changed wildly, because he found that he couldn't move. And a large amount of chakra, all through the contract, poured into his body crazily. A huge will began to emerge from the huge amount of chakra in his body. It will soon overwhelm his will. In the eyes of the future, Madara quickly swelled up, but he didn't explode, but shrank sharply, and finally turned into a beautiful woman. She has a cold temperament, white skin, beautiful face, and long legs. Although her eyebrows are white, they look a little cute. Kagaya Otsutsuki. Everyone narrowed their eyes slightly. He looked at her with great vigilance. Black Zetsu on the ground beside him was extremely ecstatic. Mom, how did you come back to life? Kagaya Otsutsuki looked at Black Zetsu nailed to the ground, and then waved his hand, and a burst of chi broke Future's 6 black sticks. As long as there is a medium connecting the chakras of the whole world, my will can be awakened with or without your last step. When the will is awakened, the body will be simpler. After hearing Kagaya Otsutsuki's explanation, Future and others understood. Even if Black Zetsu didn't open his heart, as long as Madara activated infinite moon reading, she would be resurrected. Black Zetsu felt a little regretful at this moment. If he had followed the path of the 6-path sage and let people use chakra as a bridge to connect with each other, wouldn't his mother have been resurrected long ago? Feelings are the selfish bad roots of human beings, which prevented his mother from resurrecting. After Kagaya finished explaining, she looked at the Future and the others. This was the last group of humans with chakra. Hand over all your chakra. Kagaya turned her head and looked at the Future and the others. At this time, Orochimaru had already stood up and smiled slightly. Hee. At the beginning, the child in the future told me that the end of the technique might be a beauty. I admit that I was short-sighted. You are indeed very beautiful. As he said that, patterns immediately appeared in his eyes, first the 3 Magadama level Sharingan, then the Manjiki, and finally evolved into a dark purple Samsara eye, which was darker than Madara's purple. In an instant, Orochimaru's momentum suddenly changed. 9 pitch black balls immediately appeared behind him. Black Zetsu, who had escaped and hid in Kagaya's sleeve, saw this scene and shouted in horror, "Bloodstained net! When did you?" Before he finished speaking, he suddenly looked towards the future, his eyes fixed on his knife. That knife can split the world boundary wall, and you completed this technique in another world. Damn it, how can you be so insidious? Chapter 720. As Orochimaru opened the 6 paths mode, Kagaya Otsutsuki could feel more. She narrowed her eyes and asked, "You swallowed and fused me from another world?" Hearing this, Mirai looked at her in surprise. She didn't expect that Kagaya Otsutsuki was not that stupid. She noticed something strange so quickly. He said, "Yes, in another world, we assisted the plain son of that world to defeat the other you together, and then Kushina and I used the sealing technique to suppress your consciousness. My teacher, through the blood net achieved by the ghost bud technique, completely swallowed up your power and sent the other you's will to reincarnation." Hearing Mirai's words, Kagaya Otsutsuki sneered. "Send it to reincarnation. Ridiculous." As she said this, she pointed her hand at the place where Orochimaru was, pointed and pulled, and an illusory soul was pulled out by her. This caused everyone's face to change slightly, especially Orochimaru, who had never discovered that Kagaya Otsutsuki's soul was hidden in his body. Kagaya Otsutsuki glanced at the struggling soul in his hand, and a flash of disdain flashed in his eyes. He was actually defeated by a bug, which was really embarrassing. "I, Kagaya Otsutsuki, am immortal." As she said this, she devoured H. Irion looked at Mirai with a strange look on their faces, especially Ichiraku. Yes, he is here too. Although he is retired, but people have come to his doorstep, how can he sit back and watch? Minato asked tentatively with a sharp look in his eyes, "How about we try it?" "Then let's try it." So the 7 of them understood immediately. Everyone looked at each other and nodded immediately, "Then let's try it." Dechuang, Mieko, and Hong Hong immediately stood up and said with glaring eyes, "Well, let's form the skeleton." As they said that, the kaleidoscope in their eyes spun wildly, and the next moment, colorful skeletons appeared out of thin air and wrapped everyone up. Rope Tree followed closely behind. He clapped his hands and shouted, "I will form the flesh and blood." After the words fell, countless greens full of life wrapped around the skeleton, which really looked like flesh and blood. "I will form the 5 elements." Ichiraku shouted and landed on the giant's heart. Then he injected his 5 attributes into it. "I will form the source of power." After Kushina finished speaking, she immediately burst out red chakra and quickly formed a red crystal ball on the giant's chest. Minato thought about it, and his eyes lit up immediately. He was most proud of his nerve reaction speed, and he immediately shouted, "I will form the neural network." Seeing that they all did this, Ling Hua simply followed them and said, "Then I will form the eyes." In just a few seconds, a person's shape appeared on the field. Mirai smiled and shouted, "I will form the skin." With his loud shout, the giant gradually took shape. He was a kind of humanoid, with big, white eyes, like a horizontal goose egg. There is a huge blue and red crystal on the chest, and 3 shoulder armors are derived from the crystal to protect the chest. The skin on his body is almost black, with some red, purple, blue, and other decorations. The most conspicuous thing is that there is also a diamond-shaped crystal on his forehead. When Mirai realized that everyone's thoughts were connected together, the excitement in his eyes became stronger. The perspective is provided by Ling Hua's Bian, and the speed is assisted by Minato's reflex nerves. The strength is provided by Kushina's huge chakra, and the body hardness is provided by Nawaki and Mirai's family. This combination can be said to have brought together the advantages of everyone, making the strength of the giant increase exponentially. Mirai felt the explosive power of the giant and shouted excitedly, "Very good, then it's up to me." As he said, he pulled out the Tessaigan from the giant's body. "Shine, my Tessaigan!" Instantly, the black giant changed from dark to golden. In an instant, his body also soared from 50 meters to 300 meters. This change shocked Minato and others. They felt a gentle and powerful force constantly stimulating their potential, but without any side effects. "My shining mode can make our strength reach the maximum intensity," Mirai explained and looked at Orochimaru. "Teacher, come quickly, we are just missing you." Orochimaru rejected it without thinking, "No, I don't want it, it's too embarrassing. Fusion or something." He always thought of Jiraiya's pictures and texts, and he couldn't help feeling ashamed. So he didn't want it even if he was beaten to death. And for some reason, it was 2nd year. Everyone was stunned. They didn't expect Orochimaru to not want it. In this case, they didn't force it. He turned around and looked at Kagaya Otsutsuki. At this moment, they were connected by Minato's neural network and Ling Hua's telepathy. Their thoughts were connected. They asked in unison, "Kagaya Otsutsuki, do you believe in light?" As he spoke, the huge giant disappeared in an instant. When he appeared again, he punched the tiny Kagaya. Time and space teleportation. Kagaya was shocked and hurriedly used Yankin Hirasaka to dodge. With the blessing of Kushina's 9 tails power and the future shining amplification, Minato's comprehensive strength was greatly improved, and so were other friends. Almost everyone was at the threshold of the 6 paths level. For the space movement that was difficult to see with the naked eye, they immediately saw it with the perception of the future reincarnation eye, Manjiki, Bian, etc. Minato immediately controlled the giant's arm and used a ninjutsu he imagined. "Want to escape? No way." He pulled his hands from his chest, and a beam of light suddenly appeared in his palm. As he squeezed, the beam of light was like broken glass, rapidly shooting towards Kagaya Otsutsuki. The magical thing is that this light has no physical attack ability, and can't cause any harm to Kagaya, but it has a devastating impact on the different space she opened. In the perspective they share in the future, the dark space is all shattered. After doing all this, Minato smiled and handed over the control to Nawaki. "Brother, it's up to you." Nawaki took the lead, and Hong Hong was beside him. The two held hands, controlled the giant, and used super power fist to hit her. Orochimaru just watched quietly, even a little bored. Saving the world is indeed not something that a scientist like him should worry about. Unfortunately, there was no one awake on the ground. He didn't want to go anywhere except here. So he used yin yang escape to build a cage for himself, locked himself in it, and took out fruits and ate them slowly, just like watching an immersive movie. Kagaya saw the fist coming, and her woman's intuition told her that she would die if she took it. Without saying a word, she immediately activated the ability of Gama Samsara Eye and changed the space in an instant. In an instant, a huge gravity pressed on Mirai and others. Directly forced the attacks of Rope Tree and Hong Hong to be interrupted. Mirai had already had a countermeasure for this. After all, this is his 2nd round. He materialized the ability of Tessaigan in the hands of the giant. Then he controlled the giant's hand and waved it. Immediately cut out 6 paths underworld Kangyepo. This is a move to break through space. Naturally, it is not affected by gravity. It is about to hit the big Kagaya Tsutsuki, the latter changed the space again with a thought. She had seen the moves of the future from the memory of another self, so she was not panicked. The space transformation was activated instantly. The future and others immediately appeared in the lava space. Hey, it's lava! Ichiraku was happy on the spot. His best skill was the 5 escapes, and he could use the 5 escapes to mobilize natural energy. He immediately chuckled, "Fire escape, fire dragon king bullet." As soon as the words fell, the lava under the ground immediately turned into 1,000-meter-long fire dragon and rushed towards Kagaya. The latter's face changed again and again. Fuck! Seeing that her space was dominated by the enemy, Kagaya was so shocked that she almost cursed. How could every ability of hers be cracked by the opponent? This is unscientific. Orochimaru spoke up, chewing the melon and saying, "No, no, no, this is very scientific." Kagaya suddenly looked at Orochimaru, and a trace of surprise flashed across her iceberg-like face. "Can you see through my mind?" "That's not true." Orochimaru shrugged and explained, "I just felt it. In the future, their combined strength is above yours, so they can naturally control your space." "Everyone, put an end to her." Future interrupted Kagaya's question and shouted. "Okay." In an instant, everyone shouted in the body of the shining giant. "Hat!" At the same time, the giant moved. He stood in the void with his legs bent, and retracted his fists to his waist. Then he crossed forward. Endless natural chakra, guided by Minato and Kushina, all poured into the core of the giant's heart. As the giant spread his hands, the natural energy on the earth was almost sucked out. But compared to this, the momentum of the giant was unprecedentedly high. He just stood there, and the surrounding void trembled. Countless cracks appeared, as if the space would be destroyed in the next moment. Kagaya didn't dare to change the space, because the space was unstable. If she dared to change it, the space would explode on the spot. At that time, it would have a strong backlash on her as the owner. The gain is not worth the loss. She immediately became ruthless and rushed towards the giant, 80 God's air strike. In the future, they have reached the last move, and their hands are in an L shape. A golden light shot directly at Kagaya. It destroyed her air fist with overwhelming force. Kagaya Otsutsuki also disappeared. Oh no! That day, the people on the ground woke up from their dreams again. They didn't remember what happened in the dream, they just felt empty, lonely, and cold. And what shocked them was that the chakra they were proud of disappeared. Instead, various animals began to possess chakra. I don't know who started the idea of taming beasts. So many people followed suit and signed equal contracts with animals. Soon, these people were called trainers. And these small animals with chakra were called magical elves. Or pocket treasures, monster treasures. Konoha Village. Oh no! Now it should be called Konoha Alliance. The other 4 major ninja villages also immediately changed their strategies and followed Konoha to form the Wind Hidden Alliance, Water Hidden Alliance, Earth Hidden Alliance and Thunder Hidden Alliance. The remaining small ninja villages also changed. In the Konoha Alliance, the 7 people in the future gathered in the grove for dinner. Suddenly, the future looked up and looked at the sky. The rest of the people were just a beat slower. From their perspective, there were 2 white figures stepping through the void. The aura on their bodies was very similar to that of Kagaya Otsutsuki, but everyone was not panicked. Because a golden beam of light appeared without warning and pierced through them. They were completely wiped out. They retracted their gazes and smiled at each other. They continued today's dinner. On the Konoha Hokage Yanyan, Orochimaru hugged a cold and beautiful woman with white hair and white eyebrows, and said with a smile, "I said that my second apprentice is unparalleled in the world." The cold and beautiful woman, who was originally worried, relaxed a lot when the alien was shot. She couldn't help but lean to Kushina's tricks. He missed the 9-tailed fox a little. Just when he was daydreaming, the little 9-tailed fox in Naruto's arms gave him a tail. "Namikaze Minato, don't think I don't know what you are thinking." It was a little angry. It was obviously Kushina's baby, why did she have to take care of it herself? Annoying. Because of its reduced size, its voice became much crisper than before. It felt like it was indistinguishable between male and female. Minato chuckled and didn't care. It's been more than 1 or 2 days since he was whipped by a tail. Thinking about it, he glanced at Kushina's butt unconsciously. There will be a tail there too. For example, Rika, Kushina, Hong Hong, and Mikoto gathered together and talked about the beauty of life. Especially Kushina, she was blushing and whispering to her sisters about the importance of fun life. Mirai, Minato, Ichiraku, Noeki, and Shijiro were holding wine and savoring the food. Only the 4 children in the field were more noisy. Naruto glanced at the fox in his arms, and suddenly his heart moved. He suggested to the little girl with white eyes beside him, Hinata, why don't we have a monster battle? The child of Mirai and Rika is called Hinata, of course, the last name is Uchiha. Because Mirai dotes on her daughter so much, she is not as shy as she will be in the future. However, after being with Honghong and Linghua for a long time, she gradually developed the gentle temperament of a lady from a noble family. And because the blood strength of the reincarnation eye is higher than that of the Mangekyo Sharingan, Hinata's eyes are born with being like her mother. Of course, the current blood limit is no longer as aggressive as it was in the ninja era.